18 years ago, within the Granvania Empire, stood the formidable Granvania Castle. Within its walls, a nurse joyfully announced a royal birth. Prince Cheyenne had been born safely, but the newborn prince was not a blank slate. His mind reeled with the memories of another life, one that had ended abruptly in a traffic accident. He was stunned, questioning how this could be possible when he was certain he had died. His panicked thoughts were interrupted by a looming figure. A man with a sinister grin, Cuval, observed him with satisfaction, declaring that Prince Cheyenne, the vessel he required, had finally been born. The infant flinched, a tremor of fear running through him. He turned to his subordinate, who confirmed that the prince possessed no magical power. Cuval's grin widened. This was perfect. He proclaimed that their long-held wish would now be fulfilled. His true identity was far more menacing. He was a great bishop of the cult that worshipped the god of destruction, Odi. The infant prince, overhearing everything, felt a horrifying realization dawn. They had called him Cheyenne. He had been reincarnated into the world of fantasy Arcadia, and worse, as Cheyenne Granvania, the game's final boss. He remembered the game well. Fantasy Arcadia, or Fantarca, was a fantasy RPG where you'd fought with sword and magic to secure their future. In his past life, he had played Fantarca obsessively. It was a masterpiece to which he had dedicated half his life, and because of that, he knew this world intimately. He had been an ordinary salaryman, now reborn as Cheyenne Granvania, a character from the game notorious for accumulating misfortune flags. This meant one thing: his destruction was inevitable. The realization struck him with the force of a physical blow. Somehow, he had to do something. He began his struggle against misfortune from that day forward. Determined to change his fate, he spent his youth meticulously recording every detail he could remember from the in-game events. His notes detailed the grim future that awaited: assassination attempts by the other princes and a rebellion instigated by a great demon beast. He believed that if he could just tackle these threats one by one, he might have a chance. From that day, his efforts to dismantle these destruction flags began. He reflected on his circumstances. As Cheyenne Granvania, the first prince of the empire, he was blessed with a rare and powerful magical talent. He reasoned that with this ability, combined with his memories from a past life, defying destiny was not impossible. He steeled his resolve, vowing that he would never lose to his fated destruction. Years passed in the struggle, and then the time came, Cheyenne's 18th year. He now sat upon a grand, ominous throne, his face cast in shadow. Before him, a high-ranking cleric knelt, arms raised in supplication, proclaiming that the prophesied time had finally arrived. The cleric, the great Bishop Cuval, threw his head back with a malevolent grin. He commanded the great evil god, Odi, to descend into its vessel. Below him, seated on the throne, Cheyenne's eyes flared with a sinister, inhuman light. A gloved hand smashes through a crystalline barrier with overwhelming force, sending shards flying. He drives his fist into the head of a monstrous stone golem, shattering its form completely. The sudden assault throws great Bishop Cuval off balance. He stumbles back in shock, questioning what is happening, while his subordinate, Odi, identifies the attack as a form of impact magic. From the dust, Cheyenne looks on with a cold expression, telling Odi that it's a shame things will not go as he had planned. The great bishop seethes with rage, questioning how a mere vessel would dare defy God. In response, Cheyenne reveals his full name, Cheyenne Granvania, and with an outstretched hand, commands him to be silent. His command is punctuated by an eruption of dark energy. Odi cries out in agony as the force strikes him down. Cuval, also caught in the blast, realizes with horror that his body is about to be destroyed. Cheyenne stands over the fallen Odi, calmly addressing him by name and remarking that they have had a long acquaintance. The great bishop struggles to his feet, bloodied but defiant, vowing to kill Cheyenne no matter what it takes. Cheyenne touches his own cheek, noting with a strange calm that he was thinking the exact same thing. Before Cuval can act, dozens of sharp, black tendrils erupt from the ground and from Cheyenne himself, piercing the bishop from all sides and lifting him into the air amidst a scream of agony. As a young woman in the background cries out for her master, Cuval's body is completely consumed by the dark power. Cheyenne watches the last remnants of his foe dissolve, reflecting that he has finally killed the mastermind who deceived him and plotted to destroy the world. He stands before the grand doors, a sense of finality washing over him. With a quiet farewell to the death he was meant to embody, he acknowledges that his long ordeal is finally over. Turning, he walks along an open-air corridor, reflecting that this is the most gratifying day of his existence. He has finally overcome all the misfortune that plagued his body, ensuring the world will not meet its end because of him. He clenches his gloved fist in triumph. The future has been altered. He has successfully defied the predetermined path of destruction. This victory means he is now free. He can travel alongside the story's original hero, befriend its charming heroine. He can finally experience the world he loved more than anything, the world of illusory Arcadia. His gaze lifts to the beautiful night sky, a wide, triumphant grin spreading across his face. From this moment forward, he realizes the narrative is his own, a story that no one else knows. With arms outstretched to the cosmos, he announces the true beginning of his journey, formally commencing his own version of illusory Arcadia. As he makes his declaration, the world itself seems to react. Far away, atop a desolate mountain peak, a young woman in a dark dress stands resolute. Elsewhere, another young woman gasps, her head snapping up as if sensing a profound shift. Inside a hallowed hall, the light-haired woman, Fina, is startled when two attendants burst in. They shout in alarm that Lady Fina has just received a divine oracle. She looks down at her clasped hands, wondering what it could mean. In her mind, a vision forms, a radiant, winged being who identifies herself as the great goddess Astrea, beginning to explain the oracle's meaning. The vision fades, and Fina now stands in a garden of roses, her expression filled with joyous relief. Looking up at someone who has just arrived before her, she declares that the long-awaited day has finally come. Elsewhere, under a starry sky with a dark castle looming in the distance, a young man in a hooded cloak listens to a voice behind him. The voice speaks of a fated knight destined to save the world. The young man, a confident look on his face, wonders aloud who this knight could possibly be, as the voice declares that the time for his awakening has come. A memory surfaces of a quiet city street at night. Cars pass under the glow of streetlights, a scene from a world long left behind. The memory sharpens on a man in a business suit, who, in his haste, steps into the path of an oncoming truck. A desperate warning is shouted, but it is too late. He is about to be struck down. With a sharp gasp, a young man jolts awake inside a rattling carriage, his hand pressed to his forehead. He realizes it was only a dream, questioning why a memory of his past life would surface now, of all times. The vision lingers, the life of an ordinary salaryman, reincarnated into this world. It has been a long and arduous 18 years since that fateful day. He reflects on his current existence as Shine Granvania, the second prince of the empire, who was fated to become the world-destroying final boss. Using his foreknowledge of events, he systematically dismantled every plot point, crushing even the malevolent Great Bishop Cuval and his cult, and in doing so, finally seized his own freedom. He had meticulously crafted the persona he needed, the Emperor of Ruin, a being of unparalleled beauty and power. Yet, he knows that beneath this grand exterior, he is still just an otaku salaryman at heart. He had toiled to perfect the role, mastering the speech and conduct befitting royalty. He glances at his own reflection, a silent acknowledgement of the performance. Now, to maintain his freedom, he uses illusion magic to alter his otherwise conspicuous appearance. He smirks, pleased with the result. In this guise, no one would ever suspect he is the infamous Prince Shine Granvania. The carriage continues its journey. As he gazes out the window at a passing signpost, he notes that a fair amount of time has passed since he left the castle. He settles back into his seat, appreciating the freedom he now possesses. Though he could fly and shorten the trip considerably, he finds this leisurely pace quite pleasant. This, he thinks, isn't so bad at all. He mused that he never thought a day would come when he could travel so leisurely. His quiet reflection was interrupted by a fellow passenger, a large man who gestured toward him with a massive sword. Noting his companion's apparent youth, the man asked if this was his first time on a journey. The man held up his weapon, a bastard sword. He remarked that for someone so young, his companion looked quite weary. Shine replied that while it wasn't his first journey, he'd never before had the luxury of simply enjoying the scenery. He smiled faintly, thinking that if his past hardships led him to this moment, then perhaps they weren't so bad. The man laughed heartily, declaring that he liked the look in the young man's eyes. He introduced himself as Marcus, an adventurer based in the imperial capital. Marcus clasped his hand firmly, and in return, the young man introduced himself with his alias, Ryan, a traveling magician. Delighted, Marcus declared that if they were attacked by thieves, he would entrust the rear guard to him. Ryan calmly agreed. Continuing the thought, Marcus mentioned a subjugation request he was undertaking, dismissing the targets as mere small fry. This was a far cry from a true high-level threat in this world, such as a fire dragon. To defeat such a beast, the full might of an imperial knightly order would be required. Back in the carriage, Marcus laughed it off, saying that while he was a famous adventurer, the general public wouldn't know much about their kind anyway. Ryan, finding the adventurer's work intriguing, remarked that it sounded interesting. He then asked if he might be allowed to accompany him on the job, a request that seemed to catch Marcus by surprise. As Marcus studied him, Ryan realized the man must have somehow sensed the suppressed magical power he held, a power far beyond that of an ordinary magician. After a moment of intense scrutiny, a grin spread across Marcus's face as he concluded that this young man was strong. His mind processed the information. To take on a dragon, one had to be at least an A-rank adventurer. He found it fascinating that someone could be so powerful without being one of the fated figures from the game, and he considered the proposition, intrigued by the idea of teaming up. Inside a carriage, a young man in a military uniform is knocked to the floor. Prince Cheyenne, sitting calmly, accepts the man's gratitude, telling him he's counting on him and to come back anytime. The calm is shattered when Marcus peers out the window, shouting about the commotion outside. Cheyenne's expression hardens as he looks out as well, identifying the problem instantly. Bandits are attacking the carriage. He doesn't hesitate. When Marcus asks what to do, Shine declares he's going out and leaps from the moving vehicle, warning his companion not to get left behind. Marcus scrambles to follow, yelling for him to wait. Nearby, the cause of the attack becomes clear. A group of menacing bandits surrounds Lady Fina, who is on the ground near a tree, her own carriage overturned in the distance. She pleads for them to stay away as they close in. A boot slams into a bandit's face, sending him reeling. Shine has arrived. He turns his attention to the distressed lady, asking if she is all right. Fina looks up, startled and flustered by his sudden appearance, so he repeats his question to ensure she heard. She quickly assures him she is fine. Shine tells her to stay hidden. As one of the remaining bandits demands to know who he is, Shine's hands begin to glow with fiery energy. He states that he is merely a passerby, but that he will not permit such lawlessness in his country. The bandits recoil in terror, realizing he is a mage and shouting for everyone to run. But it is too late. With a cry of "Fire Lance!" Shine unleashes a torrent of flame from his outstretched hand. The spell engulfs the attackers in an instant inferno. From a safe distance, Fina watches the display of overwhelming power, her expression a mixture of shock and awe. Marcus arrives on scene just in time to see the fiery aftermath. With the threat neutralized, Fina stands and offers her sincere thanks to both men for saving her. Marcus comments on the grimness of the situation, while Shine simply acknowledges her gratitude with a quiet affirmation. Her gaze lingers on Shine, her thoughts revealing that he is the one who hired her. As she contemplates this, he breaks the silence, suggesting that for now, they should give her a ride into town. He and Marcus listened as the woman they had just rescued spoke from her carriage, her voice trembling slightly as she considered what a disaster it would have been if they hadn't arrived. Grateful for their intervention, she formally introduced herself as Fina and offered her sincere thanks. Marcus, however, laughed good-naturedly, pointing out that he hadn't done anything and that Ryan had single-handedly annihilated their attackers. His jovial comment was met with an unexpected silence. Marcus turned to Ryan, his smile fading into a look of concern as he saw his friend's shocked expression. He asked what was wrong. He quickly tried to dismiss it, stammering that it was nothing. But internally, his mind was reeling from the name she had just spoken. Fina. The realization struck him with such force that Fina herself could only look on, puzzled by his intense reaction. His composure shattered as a frantic thought echoed in his mind. Why was a main character from Genial here of all places? As Ryan grappled with this bewildering and unexpected encounter, Fina simply beamed, delighted by their chance meeting. A carriage made its way toward the imperial capital, carrying its passengers and a heavy question. Was Lady Fina an ally or an enemy? Inside, Fina offered a warm, reassuring smile. She expressed her gratitude for being brought along, promising she wouldn't be a burden. The dark-haired young man watched her, his expression unreadable. His mind raced, recalling what he knew of Fina from Arcadia Fantasia. She was a character meant to travel with the protagonist and the great goddess Astrea, but who was ultimately fated to perish. He realized this was his first encounter with someone who should have been an ally. He broke the silence, asking what she had been doing. More importantly, he questioned why she was heading to the imperial capital. Before she could fully answer, he revealed that an oracle had been issued concerning the recent meteor shower. At the mention of an oracle, Marcus's head snapped up in surprise. His companion, stroking his chin thoughtfully, voiced his confusion. He believed that only the saintess of the Estia Church could receive oracles. He looked directly at Fina, asking if she was, in fact, the saintess. The question left her momentarily speechless. She began to stammer, explaining that she simply wished to apologize and travel with them. Marcus pressed on, finding it odd that a saintess would be journeying alone without guards. The dark-haired man interjected, stating that the meteor shower was the crucial detail. He continued, explaining that the oracle commanded them to find the one who caused the meteor shower. He found this suspicious, questioning if the event was truly a natural phenomenon, a point Fina quietly confirmed it was not. He deduced that her original mission, according to the oracle, was to seek the fated night to save the world, a journey that should have taken her south. Fina then revealed the full truth. The meteor shower was triggered by an immense and sinister magical power. A second oracle had been given, to find the one whose power rivals the gods, the work of a sorcerer. Both Marcus and the young man listened, the gravity of her words sinking in. Her gaze was firm as she concluded that mastering and understanding such a power was the divine mission bestowed upon her. As she spoke, a vision of the great goddess Astrea appeared, acknowledging that she and the dark-haired man were aware of each other, sizing one another up. He inwardly cursed, realizing that despite his efforts to avoid a fated path, he had just triggered a new event. He turned to Fina, stating their destination was the Grad Mountains to the south, and bluntly apologized, saying he could not help her. Marcus, rubbing his chin thoughtfully, tells Fina that while he can't force the issue, if her oracle is true, then he and his companion should act as her escorts. Fina, however, smiles graciously and insists that his kind words are more than enough. Hearing this exchange, the fated knight turns his head sharply, a bead of sweat on his temple. Marcus looks on, questioning Fina's decision. Suddenly, a gentle, divine light envelopes Fina. The fated knight stares in disbelief, realizing this must be the power of the goddess Astrea manifesting at this very moment. As the light intensifies, Fina senses a connection, wondering if this man is truly the one, though a bad premonition begins to form. The celestial glow fades as quickly as it appeared. Fina opens her eyes, her expression now filled with conviction, and announces that she has received the oracle. She turns directly to the fated knight, addressing him as Ryan. She explains that although she should keep the message to herself, she feels compelled to share it with him. He listens, a faint, knowing smile touching his lips as he acknowledges her words. Looking him directly in the eye, Fina delivers the divine command. Her god has instructed her to accompany him. Ryan is struck speechless, his eyes wide with shock. Inside the carriage, Ryan's eyes flutter open as he murmurs a quiet acknowledgement. He seems startled to find Fina smiling gently at him, with Marcus observing from nearby. Their journey brings them to the bustling streets of the trading city of Gaftia, a lively hub of commerce and activity. Soon after, the trio settles in for a meal. Fina savors her food with pure delight, while Marcus eats with gusto, wondering aloud what their next move should be. He explains his original intention to head to the Grad Mountains. Fina immediately expresses her desire to go as well, wanting to see the volcanic range for herself. Marcus seems to agree, but Fina clarifies that she is going because Ryan is recognized by the goddess, and thus, she must accompany him. She turns to Ryan with an earnest expression, asking what preparations are necessary for a trip to the volcanic zone. He looks at her with clear skepticism, questioning if she truly intends to join them. As Marcus grows flustered, Fina puffs her cheeks and confirms with a resolute, "Of course." Ryan considers her reasoning. The goddess says that by doing this, the world will be saved. He internally questions if the world can truly be saved at all. His thoughts are interrupted by Marcus, who asks what he plans to do. With a sigh, Ryan concedes that he has no choice, as she is determined to follow him regardless. Taking a sip from his cup, Marcus accepts the decision, stating that since he gave his permission, he will take full responsibility for protecting Fina. He then adds a crucial piece of information. The Grad Mountains are a recommended area only for adventurers of A rank or higher. Ryan smirks, asking who Marcus is directing that warning to. Realization dawns on Marcus, who asks if Ryan is even registered with the Adventurers Guild. When Ryan confirms he is not, Marcus grabs him, declaring they must go register at once, as an adventurer's qualification is required to enter the mountain's depths. He listens as Fina, with a determined blush, declares that if he is to become an adventurer, then she will as well. Surprised, but accepting, Ryan tells her to do as she likes, to which she gives a firm confirmation. Arriving at the Adventurers Guild, they are greeted by a cheerful receptionist with fox-like features. Marcus presents the pair for registration. The receptionist asks if they are familiar with the guild, and seeing their hesitation, she offers to explain the system. She elaborates that upon registering, they can undertake quests to earn money and items. Adventurers are ranked from F to S, and their rank increases by completing high-difficulty quests. She hands Ryan his new F-rank guild card, encouraging him to take on many quests and aim for a higher rank. Ryan accepts it with thanks. He examines the card with a slight smile. He reflects that while he never intended to become an adventurer, the idea of traveling while aiming for S rank doesn't seem so bad after all. With their registration complete, the group ventures into the Grad Mountains. The area is also known as the Dragon's Nest, where an ancient dragon was once sealed. Ryan recognizes this as a special place, recalling from the original story that this is where the seal would break. He reassures himself that for now, the dragon remains sealed. His thoughts are cut short when Marcus shouts a warning. A massive basilisk emerges before them. Marcus yells for everyone to evade, recognizing the immediate danger of its petrifying breath. Before the creature can attack, Ryan steps forward, calmly stating that such an attack is useless against him. He unleashes a powerful spell, and the basilisk is instantly enveloped in a blinding light and destroyed. As Marcus stares in disbelief, Ryan dismisses the feat as nothing special. Their relief is short-lived as the growls of more monsters fill the air. A pack of large, wolf-like creatures emerges from the shadows, startling Fina. Marcus draws his sword and asks if this is common, and Ryan confirms that it is. Faced with a horde of monsters, Ryan's expression shifts to one of eager anticipation. He steps forward, extending a hand as if welcoming the challenge. "Well then," he declares with a grin, "let's enjoy this monster extermination." A horde of monsters swarms through the rocky pass, but Ryan stands firm, clenching his fist with determination. He leaps into the fray, delivering a powerful, precise strike to a beastman, shattering its jaw. He continues his assault, effortlessly blocking a slash from a reptilian creature with his bare forearm. The monster's claws shatter on impact, causing it to reel back in pain as Fina watches with concern. With a surge of power, he unleashes a concussive blast from his hand, sending the creature flying backward with a devastating impact. He turns back towards his companions, a confident smile on his face as he points and declares it's their turn. Marcus and Fina can only stare, utterly amazed at the display of power they just witnessed. As the group proceeds through the canyon, Ryan casually asks if perhaps he overdid it. Marcus, patting his sword, reassures him it was quite a sight. He remarks that he never expected Grad Mountain to be so manageable, but Ryan dismisses the battle as mere child's play. Marcus enthusiastically urges them to press on, but Fina turns to Ryan with a worried expression. She asks if it's truly all right for them to not collect any materials from the defeated monsters. Ryan considers her point, agreeing that it's a valid concern. He explains that while it's an adventurer's duty to bring back spoils, he isn't short on money. Besides, he doubts they could carry that much back. Marcus admits he came to earn a bit of coin, as the camera pans over the massive carcass of a winged beast they've encountered. Ryan sits beside the fallen creature, placing a hand on its form. He states that he will appease its spirit and then give it a proper burial. In response to his actions, a massive, ethereal dragon manifests. It identifies itself as a fire dragon and declares that, more than anything, it wishes to see a dragon soon. Fina, blushing slightly, turns to Ryan with a curious smile. She asks him why he is so fond of dragons. At the question, Ryan stiffens and quickly turns away, flustered. He internally conceded that fantasy and dragons were inseparable, a truth he couldn't voice aloud. Despite his fondness for the creatures he was about to hunt, his companions reacted differently. Fina seemed to understand his sentiment, while Marcus remained unimpressed. Putting his feelings aside, the group pressed onward, traversing a desolate landscape of jagged, steaming rock. Marcus identified the oppressive terrain as cooled lava. As they navigated the treacherous path, Marcus suddenly shouted a warning, pointing out that Ryan was stepping directly onto molten rock. Fina cried out his name in alarm, but he calmly told them not to worry. He stood completely unscathed upon the glowing, liquid stone, a confident smile on his face. With a casual gesture, he asked his companions what they thought, leaving them utterly speechless. Marcus collapsed in disbelief, exclaiming that such a feat shouldn't be possible. Fina, still worried, called out to Ryan, who seemed to be enjoying himself. He compared the sensation to a warm slime and playfully offered to cast the same protective magic on them. With a knowing smile, he turned to his companions and proposed they take a shortcut. After traveling deep into the volcanic belt, Marcus admitted he was tired, not from the journey, but from Ryan's constant surprises. Ryan joked it was his own fault for reacting so much. Their banter was cut short when Fina spotted a massive swarm darkening the horizon, and Marcus wondered aloud if it was a flock of fire dragons. Fina nervously observed the vast number of creatures. Ryan confirmed her assessment, calmly stating that the swarm was well over 100 strong. The realization struck Marcus, who shouted in disbelief at the overwhelming odds. The sky filled with the screeching silhouettes of the creatures, a mass outbreak of fire dragons. As the swarm descended, an unsettling thought crossed Ryan's mind. He recognized this phenomenon. His expression hardened. While Fina and Marcus stared in horror, he realized something was deeply wrong. This event, this massive outbreak, should not be happening yet. It belonged to a future that had not yet come to pass. A massive swarm of bat-like creatures descends upon the group. Marcus curses, noting that the creatures are targeting them specifically. Ryan, however, remains calm, stating that since their goal was to subjugate a fire dragon, this shouldn't be an issue. He points out that the sheer number of foes is the only real problem. He recognizes the scene unfolding before him. This, he realizes, is an event that was originally supposed to occur at Grad Mountain, just before the final battle. He confirms to himself that there is no mistaking it. The gravity of the situation dawns on Marcus. He glances back toward the nearby town, understanding that if the swarm gets past them, the townspeople are doomed. Gritting his teeth, he resolves that they have no choice but to fight here and now. Sensing the urgency, Fina turns, her voice filled with conviction as she declares that now is the time to act. Ryan observes his companions, noting that in such a desperate situation, fleeing is not an option. He sees Fina, the story's main character, still possessing the strength to look forward. He then looks at Marcus, a character who wasn't even in the original game, standing firm to protect everyone. Ryan marvels internally at how magnificent he is, like a true hero. He continues his thought, reflecting on the heroes who weave the tale and the supporters who sustain them. An ecstatic, almost manic grin spreads across his face. This, he thinks with trembling excitement, is what he wanted to see. This is the feeling he longed for, the brilliance of their souls. His sudden shift in demeanor startles his companions. Marcus turns to him with a questioning look, while Fina calls out his name with concern. He turns back to them, his expression now one of supreme confidence. He declares that he will show them a mere fraction of his true power. As he speaks, an immense wave of magical energy erupts from him. Marcus grunts, bracing against the pressure, while Fina gasps at the sheer scale of the power. Raising his hands, Ryan manifests a vast, intricate magic circle in the sky above the swarm and commands the creatures to be annihilated. With a final cry, he unleashes the spell, Mateo's form. A blinding torrent of light rains down from the heavens, striking the horde with cataclysmic force. His spell, a cataclysmic rain of fire, descends from the sky. Countless points of light streak downwards, impacting the swarm of monsters below and obliterating them in a series of violent explosions that scour the landscape. As the last embers fade, he calmly lowers his hand. The ground is littered with the dissolving remains of the creatures. With a quiet finality, he declares that it is over. His companions, however, are far from calm. Marcus stares, utterly speechless, while Fina, wide-eyed, wonders aloud if perhaps he had overdone it just a little. Suddenly, a violent tremor shakes the very ground beneath their feet, startling all three of them out of their thoughts. He realizes the implication immediately. The massive generation of fire dragons could only mean one thing. That thing has been revived. As Fina looks on in confusion, he turns with grim determination and says, "Let's go." Walking through the now desolate valley, he considers the possibility that if his suspicions are correct, then history itself has been changed. His companions follow, their expressions a mixture of awe and apprehension. Seeing their unease, he stops and looks back, admitting that this unforeseen consequence is almost certainly his fault. His gaze shifts forward, a confident smirk on his face. He reveals that his next opponent, the one waiting for them, is an ancient dragon named Levitine, a being that has lived for millennia and once battled the gods themselves. A deafening roar echoes through the icy mountains, startling the group. Marcus calls out in alarm, asking Ryan where he is going, while Fina looks on with concern. Without breaking stride, Ryan gestures for them to remain, stating that they should wait for him there. He sprints alone across the treacherous, frozen landscape of the Grad Mountains, a region known by another name, the Dragon's Nest. Shine's thoughts sharpen with focus. He knows the reason for the region's ominous name is because ancient dragons are said to inhabit it. He is certain this is no mere rumor. His mind drifts to the ancient history of the continent of Estia, recalling a time when a great war erupted, dividing the old gods and the new gods into warring factions. Among the many races that existed then, the dragons possessed power that could rival the gods themselves. However, both divine factions viewed the dragons as arrogant beings and, as a result, hunted them. They were the strongest of all races, but their preference for fighting as individuals rather than in groups proved to be a fatal flaw. Because of this, they could not stand against the might of the gods. Most were slain, and the few who managed to survive were sealed away from the world. Cheyenne concludes his internal recounting of history. That is how the dragons were destroyed. At that very moment, Ryan arrives before a massive, wounded dragon lying prone on the snowy ground. The ancient creature's eye snaps open, its voice rumbling with defiance. It declares that its kind has not been destroyed. Ryan stands before the beast as it questions if he truly believes the ancient dragons no longer exist on the continent. Ryan calmly states that, as far as he knows, they are merely sleeping. He then adds an eternal sleep is no different from death. In response, the dragon lets out a low, menacing growl. He directly addresses the beast, calling it Ancient Dragon Levitine. He demands to know why it has awakened now, reminding it that it was sealed by the god of destruction, Cuval. He inwardly realizes that this is happening far too soon. According to the original events he knows, the seal shouldn't have broken yet. In response, the dragon rumbles, its voice filled with ancient power. It declares that it sensed the power of a god and scoffs at the arrogance of any who would speak of ruling the world, dismissing such talk as insolence. The mention of a god's power startles Ryan. From her vantage point, Fina gasps in understanding, realizing the dragon is speaking of her, the substitute for the heavenly goddess Astrea. The dragon's fury intensifies. It vows that if a descendant of the gods has approached, it will eradicate their entire lineage. With a roar, it transforms into a smaller, swifter dragon and lunges forward as Ryan notes that the seal must have been incredibly weak. As it closes in, the dragon senses divine protection emanating from Ryan himself. It recognizes the lingering power and realizes with a snarl that it belongs to Cuval. He scoffs, telling the dragon not to associate him with such a being. In response, the dragon unleashes a furious claw strike, roaring for his death. The powerful blow misses its mark, striking only the stone floor. The dragon itself seems confused by the lack of impact, and Ryan stares in surprise at the outcome. A confident smirk spreads across his face. He taunts the beast, asking what's wrong and declaring that an attack of such meager strength could never kill him. Goaded beyond reason, the dragon lets out a deafening roar, its frustration and rage echoing through the cavern. The enraged beast is met not with fear, but with an attack, as Ryan unleashes a swirling vortex of dark energy from his outstretched hand. He smirks with absolute confidence, gathering the potent energy into a sphere and issuing a challenge, a contest of pure strength. The blast of power slams into the dragon, forcing it back. It roars in disbelief, declaring the situation impossible for a being such as itself, the ancient dragon Levitine. He maintains his confident grin, effortlessly manipulating the swirling energy as he questions why the dragon would think such a thing. He asks if the dragon truly cannot comprehend, explaining that while it may have believed itself to be the strongest, his own body is one that was defeated by and subsequently absorbed an evil god. He declares himself an existence on a higher plane, far beyond the dragon's limited world of knowledge. The dark power intensifies, slamming into Levitine with overwhelming force. The great beast cries out in shock as it is violently driven into the rocky terrain, shattering the ground on impact. It groans, pinned amidst the rubble, unable to process what has happened. Rein looks down upon the defeated creature and calmly states that this is the difference in their power. He stands poised on a large rock above the dragon, declaring that the outcome of their battle has now been settled. Levitine demands to be killed, preferring death to the disgrace of its current state. Rein replies that he knows the dragon cannot die so easily. He explains that such a being, even if killed once, would simply revive at a special time. He stands on the dragon's snout, adding that while its revival is inevitable, he will not allow it to be destroyed in the first place. The mighty dragon can only growl in helpless frustration. Having defeated the ancient beast, he now presents an offer. His hand extends, index finger raised, as he proposes a single choice. Standing atop the massive, downed dragon's head, he asks if it understands the choice presented. He clarifies that while he holds no personal grudge, he sees no reason not to be hostile if necessary. He continues, covering his face with one hand. He admits that while he can be ruthless to his enemies, he is not a monster. The dragon's golden eye widens as Rein calmly asks, "What path will you choose?" Meanwhile, his companions arrive at the desolate, rocky scene. Marcus and Fina call out his name, finally spotting his lone figure in the distance. They rush to his side, and Marcus immediately asks if he is all right. Rein reassures him that there is no problem, prompting Marcus to surmise that he simply showed off a bit too much of his power and is now being cautious. Fina, however, is overcome with awe, exclaiming how amazing he is for felling such a colossal dragon. She declares he must be the one chosen by her god. Rein, completely taken aback by the fervent praise, becomes flustered and stammers that it is not true. He regains some composure and clarifies his position. He tells Fina that he has no idea what her god is thinking and, more importantly, that he has no intention of doing anything special. His blunt dismissal leaves both Fina and Marcus speechless, staring at him with expressions of pure confusion. Marcus breaks the silence, looking around the empty battlefield and asking where the dragon went. Rein, still flustered, mutters that it's now certain he will be doing special things from now on. He then explains that the creature is reflecting on its actions after launching such a sudden attack. His words do little to clear the bewildered looks on his companions' faces. In the space where the colossal ancient dragon had been, a pair of delicate, high-heeled shoes settled onto the scorched earth with a soft crunch. A voice, feminine and filled with a strange mix of surprise and delight, echoed in the sudden silence. She mused that she never imagined a human could bring her to this point, and with a coy smile that revealed sharp fangs, she declared her intention to belong to him. The source of the voice was revealed to be a young woman with small horns, dressed in an elaborate dark gown. She struck a playful pose, announcing that her anger had passed, and she was now simply bored. Marcus and Fina stared in utter disbelief, with Marcus stammering in shock at the sight of the beautiful girl. Rein, however, watched her with a cold, analytical gaze, his expression unchanged. Marcus and Fina stare in disbelief at the sudden appearance of a young, horned girl. Marcus, bewildered, asks Rein who this child could possibly be. Rein, with a weary expression, identifies her as his familiar. The girl smirks and licks her lips, thoroughly enjoying the stunned silence of Rein's companions. The girl breaks the silence, demanding to know why they are all gawking at her. She insists that they should be explaining the situation with the dragon from before. He struggles to find the right words, internally grappling with the fact that the ancient dragon who once battled a god has been reduced to this childlike form. Fina, meanwhile, timidly addresses him, asking if he is now the girl's master. Before he can answer, the girl interrupts, declaring that Rein would likely say something foolish if left to explain. She decides to introduce herself. As Marcus and Fina wonder if the two are companions, she announces with a dramatic flourish that she is the ancient dragon, Levitine, once revered even by the gods. She continues, acknowledging her current form, but warning them not to forget the reverence she is due. Levitine explains that it is not unusual for ancient dragons to take human form, and since she was defeated by her master, it is only natural to assume a shape that he desires. Fina looks on, puzzled by the name and the transformation. A sudden realization dawns on Fina. Her eyes widen as she processes the implication. If the dragon took a form her master desired, then his command must be absolute. She blushes and asks Rein directly if he has a preference for small children. Rein vehemently denies it, flustered by the accusation. He clarifies that he never requested she take human form, much less that of a child. Levitine confirms this, stating that she chose this form after acknowledging him as her master and deciding to serve him. Fina reflects on the incredible reality. Rein now commands a dragon from the age of gods. Having settled the matter, Levitine turns to Rein, asking what he intends to do now that he is her master. He considers this for a moment before laying out his plan. First, he intends to strip the scales from the other dragon's corpse and sell them to the Adventurers Guild. Levitine's expression instantly shifts to one of pure, fanged outrage. As she erupts, Marcus quickly grabs hold of her, trying to placate her by saying it's just a joke. She struggles against his grip, shouting that she can't hear a word her master is saying. He volunteers to handle the logistics, telling Ryan that he'll go sell the material from the fire dragon and other monsters. Marcus insists that since Ryan has done most of the fighting, he shouldn't have to worry about it, adding that Ryan would just be tagging along anyway. With their tasks divided, Ryan announces that he, Fina, and Levitine will return to the trade city of Galatea. Standing before the mountainous remains of her former body, Levitine enthusiastically agrees. Upon arriving in the city, Ryan explains to Fina that they're simply walking around while waiting for Marcus to exchange the items for cash. This does little to placate Levitine, who puffs out her cheeks in frustration, loudly complaining about being made to wait for one of her master's companions. Her complaints are cut short when they find several people lying unconscious on the cobblestones. Ryan stops in his tracks, while Levitine disdainfully wonders if there's anyone at all protecting the peace in the city. After the situation is apparently handled, Fina thanks Levitine. The dragon accepts with a confident wink, telling Fina to rely on her when dealing with such unseemly individuals. Ryan watches them, surprised that Fina is getting along with her, and muses that she must harbor some resentment towards the gods. She proudly declares that the gods are now her master's enemies, and if they were to attack, she would simply strike them down. Before Ryan can fully process this, Levitine's attention is diverted by the smell of a food stall. She excitedly asks if she can have some. He looks toward the stall, a gentle smile forming on his face as he agrees, calling it a reward. A moment later, Levitine is in a state of pure bliss, devouring 2 skewers of grilled meat. She exclaims that the food made by humans is truly exceptional. Watching her cheerful display, Fina remarks to Ryan that Levitine seems like an ordinary girl. He reminds her that despite the appearance, her true nature is that of a dragon who has lived for thousands of years. His gaze then settles on Fina, who seems to blush slightly under his attention. She looks up, calling his name with concern. Fina notes that he looks a bit pale and asks if he is all right. Ryan presses a hand to his forehead, dismissing her worry by saying he's fine, but his internal thoughts betray a deeper concern for his own physical condition. He found his thoughts drifting to the Oracle Maiden, Fina. In a story he knew, she was supposed to be 18 at her debut. Yet he'd heard she was only 16 now, and by all rights, should still be in training at the Holy Astia Church. This led him to a troubling conclusion. As an Oracle Maiden, she was still immature. Compared to the original version of herself, she had not yet grown into her full power. His preoccupation did not go unnoticed. Fina turned to him, suggesting they rest for a bit. He muttered an agreement, his mind still elsewhere, consumed by what he felt were unnecessary thoughts. He continued to ponder the implications. If he were to face her in the future, it would be more convenient if she remained undeveloped. But then he considered that the entire history of this world had already been irrevocably changed. Finding a quiet bench, they sat. He reflected that most of the tragic events that were supposed to happen had been averted. Even the appearance of the goddess Astrea, an event that should be happening soon, was now unlikely. But a darker thought followed. What if his actions, his changes to the timeline, were the very cause of someone else's unhappiness? He considered the key figures of this world's original story. With him, their final destination, now gone, what would become of them all? Sensing his turmoil, Fina gently placed her hand over his. She, too, was burdened by destiny. She knew she was meant to defeat the final boss, and in doing so, lose her own life. She wondered if this was the fate she truly had to bear. Breaking the silence, he turned to her, stating he had something to ask. He posed a hypothetical question. What would she do if she knew she was fated to die? Fina met his gaze, her resolve clear. She answered that, of course, she would fight against such a fate. She would not die. He pressed her further, his gaze intense. What if, as a result of her defiance, the world was destroyed? Would she still fight? Fina clenched her fist, her expression unwavering. Even so, she declared, I will fight. She looked at him, a faint blush on her cheeks, but her gaze unwavering, and declared that she did not want to die. Ryan listened in silence, his expression thoughtful. Her desire was simple. She wanted to live. She acknowledged the prophecy of the girl who must sacrifice her life to defeat the final boss, but then revealed her belief that there was another way. A way to save both the world and herself. A path that only Ryan, her fated person, could help her find. He met her earnest plea with a confident smile, proclaiming that he was stronger than anyone. His sudden declaration left Fina momentarily speechless and flustered. Noticing her reaction, he playfully asked why her face was so red, a question she vehemently denied had any significance. As he seemed to accept her reasoning, a young elf girl approached, addressing him as master and asking what he would like to eat next. Fina, meanwhile, added that since Ryan was her fated person, she would protect him with her life, so he needn't worry. Having made his decision, he stood and announced it was time for them to leave. Fina, her expression full of trust, readily agreed, stating she would follow him anywhere. Their moment of accord was starkly contrasted by a scene of desperation unfolding elsewhere. In the darkness of a forest, the same young elf girl ran for her life, her breath coming in ragged gasps of fear. Behind her, Two brutish bandits gave chase, shouting for their quarry to surround her. As they closed in, her foot caught on the uneven ground, sending her tumbling to the dirt with a cry. She looked up in terror as the two men cornered her, their shadows falling over her prone form. One of them sneered, telling her to act her age and not cause them any trouble. Helpless and trapped, she could only whisper a desperate plea for someone to save her. On a city street, Marcus bids farewell to Ryan and his companions. He tells Ryan there's no need to worry, noting his energetic spirit. As he firmly shakes the demonic girl's hand, Ryan questions the abrupt departure, and the girl remarks on how quickly they parted ways. As they walk away, Ryan reflects aloud that meetings and partings are but temporary bonds. He philosophizes that if a connection is deep enough, they're fated to meet again naturally. He continues, explaining that by interacting with people again, they will come to understand. With a determined smile, he concludes that he has no time to mope. The demonic girl beside him seems to ponder his words. With his mind made up, Ryan cheerfully suggests that since they have become adventurers, they should immediately go and accept a quest. Fina readily agrees to the idea. Sometime later, out in a sunlit field, Fina's hand reaches toward a glowing white flower. She calls out to Ryan, announcing that she has found one. Almost immediately, the demonic girl excitedly declares that she too has found the target herb. Ryan, who had been sitting nearby, looks over in surprise. Her success only highlights Ryan's own struggles. He stares with frustration at a useless blade of grass, muttering that he hasn't found a single one. The demonic girl teases him, remarking that her master still has a long way to go. She continues to chide him, calling him master and telling him not to be childish. Fina attempts to mediate, encouraging Ryan to keep trying, but her attention is suddenly caught by something in the grass. Her discovery is quickly followed by another. Both Fina and the demonic girl proudly present their findings to a thoroughly exhausted-looking Ryan. Despite his own struggles, their combined efforts yield a bountiful harvest. Looking at the pile of glowing flowers, Ryan declares that this will be more than enough. He clenches his fist in frustration, having failed to find a single target herb. He mutters to himself that an E-rank quest is proving to be unexpectedly difficult to get the hang of. The demonic girl watches him thoughtfully, remarking that her master seems unusually strong and wonders if it's because he's been left behind in some way. He turns to her, startled, demanding to know what she means. He presses her, asking what exactly he is lacking. His agitation grows as he throws out a possibility. Luck. The demonic girl giggles at his outburst as he shouts in exasperation, questioning if she thinks he lacks a heart. His outburst draws Fina's attention. She stares at him, her expression filled with concern, and asks what is wrong. She continues, a slight blush on her cheeks, observing how different Ryan seems at that moment. He looks back, arms crossed, his own expression one of confusion. The demonic girl leans toward Fina, whispering conspiratorially that his human side is really starting to show. Fina appears surprised by the comment. Fina quickly dismisses the notion with a laugh, insisting that Ryan has always been full of humanity. The demonic girl chuckles in response, but Ryan, overhearing their conversation, twitches in annoyance. His attention is suddenly diverted. He quiets his companions, stating that he can hear a voice. Both Fina and the demonic girl look at him, puzzled. His expression shifts instantly to one of alarm. He spins around and points decisively, shouting that the sound is coming from over there. His companions call out his name, startled by his sudden action. Following his direction, they spot a commotion near some ruins in the distance. Figures are being forcefully led away. The demonic girl casually wonders if it's a kidnapping, remarking on the senseless conflicts of humans. Ryan, however, narrows his eyes, sensing that this is something different. He immediately identifies them by their long ears and distinctive clothing. They are elves. Fina, confused, asks what he means. He explains that they are a race living deep within the forest, rarely showing themselves to humans. Because of their beauty and rarity, elves are highly sought after as slaves. To protect themselves, they live out their long lives within a special barrier that shields their village from the outside world. This is the cruel reality of the slave system, a wicked institution that, in his past, he was powerless to oppose. Watching from the cover of the bushes, the demonic girl addresses him as master, observing that something about the situation seems off. He agrees, identifying the attackers not as simple slave traders, but as bandits preying on them. He deduces they are slave hunters who attack merchants to steal their goods and sell them on the black market. While the traders brought this upon themselves, he notes, the elf is an innocent victim caught in the crossfire. The situation grows dire as one of the bandits seizes the terrified elf girl, telling her they've driven off the others and that she's coming with him. Just as the bandit begins to drag her away, Ryan steps out from the shadows, his voice cutting through the tension. That's far enough. He holds up a hand, halting the startled bandit who demands to know who he is. Ryan simply warns him not to come any closer. In an instant, dark, ribbon-like tendrils of energy erupt from his outstretched hand, swiftly binding the bandits and rendering them helpless. The elf girl can only stare, astonished by the sudden display of power. With the threat neutralized and the bandits left hanging upside down, he turns to the rescued elf. He asks if she is all right. She quietly confirms that she is and offers her thanks, which he dismisses as unnecessary. He looks down at the rescued elf girl, musing aloud that if slave hunting is still occurring in this country, then it might be his fault. The girl looks up at him, her expression filled with surprise. Dismissing his own comment as nothing, he notices she appears to be injured. He warns her that he's about to be rude for a moment, reaching a hand toward her. She lets out a small gasp of surprise at his sudden movement. His hand begins to glow with a soft, restorative light. He quietly determines that this should, at the very least, leave no lingering pain. As he performs the minor healing, he thinks to himself that it would be better if she were treated by someone else. He knows Fina is a far more skilled user of recovery magic, despite her immaturity. From behind him, Fina calls out his name. With Fina's help, the elf girl is fully healed. She beams with gratitude, thanking Fina for saving her and introducing herself as Arya. Fina smiles warmly in return. Arya then turns her attention to Ryan, her expression one of awe. She tells him that the spirits are rejoicing at the sight of him, something she has never witnessed before. She then asks directly if he is human. Ryan, taken aback, asks what she means by the question. He explains to his companions that spirits normally dislike humans and hide from them as a result. Hearing this, Ryan closes his eyes, a slow smile spreading across his face. The realization that the spirits are drawn to him brings him a quiet sense of joy. His companions watch his reaction, and Arya asks what they should do about the captured bandits. His focus returns to the present. He looks at Arya and asks what she wants to do now. Overwhelmed, Arya admits she doesn't know how to answer that. She then looks up, her hands touching the metal ring around her neck. She confirms it is a slave's collar. This artifact, a replica of an ancient design, ensures the wearer cannot resist their master and allows their location to be constantly tracked. She explains with a pained expression that the collar prevents her from going anywhere. Furthermore, the person who put it on her has disappeared, and their effect cannot be undone. Ryan listens, his expression hardening. Fina gasps, urgently warning Ryan not to attempt removing it by force. She explains that any such effort would cause the collar to constrict and crush Arya's neck. His face shadowed, Ryan quietly confirms that he understands. He turns to Arya, telling her to bear with him as it might hurt a little. She looks up, startled, as he reaches out and places his fingers on the metal lock of the collar. A brilliant flash of light erupts from his touch. With a sharp crack, the slave collar shatters completely, and Arya cries out in pure shock. As the broken pieces fall away, Ryan calmly states that the problem is now solved. Arya stares in utter disbelief, stammering as she tries to process how he destroyed what she knew to be an unbreakable slave collar. Watching from a distance, Fina and the demonic girl are stunned. Fina expresses her astonishment, remarking that it was an artifact that not even 10 court mages working in unison could break. His attention returns to the elf girl. He crouches down to meet her gaze and tells her he will ask her his question one more time. With Fina and the demonic girl smiling warmly behind him, Ryan extends a hand to Arya. He asks her what she wants to do from now on, signaling the dawn of a new beginning. The group, Ryan, Fina, Arya, and the young demon, travels along a country road, the covered wagon they ride and jolting along the path. Inside the wagon, Fina gently places her hand over Arya's scraped knee, a soft glow of healing magic emanating from her palm. The demonic girl observes, remarking that the master's recovery magic is quite impressive. Fina demurs, saying it's nothing special. As they speak, Ryan glances back from the driver's seat. Fina, with a humble smile, admits that she is still inexperienced with her abilities. She adds that she is simply glad to be of some help on their journey home. The demonic girl agrees enthusiastically, noting that thanks to Ryan treating the horse, they are spared from carrying their heavy luggage. Beside her, Fina affectionately pets the horse's muzzle. Her kindness prompts Arya to thank her sincerely. Fina turns the conversation to Arya, stating that she can't imagine what the elf girl has been through. She then confesses that she, too, might have been sold to slave traders if Ryan hadn't intervened to save her. Hearing his companion's words, Ryan's expression hardens slightly as he listens in silence, his gaze fixed on the road ahead. Her story paints a grim picture of the Empire, a land where the gap between nobles and commoners is vast. In small villages, some are forced to sell their own children just to survive the harsh winters. She continues her explanation, revealing a grim historical account. While some people turn to banditry, their numbers are far too high to be a simple coincidence. In the original course of history, she explains, the oppression by the nobles of the Granvania Empire sparked a coup d'état. This event led to the empire losing its power and, consequently, Shine being stripped of his imperial throne. She then reveals the shocking outcome of that timeline. Shine Granvania became emperor, executed the entire royal family, and declared war on the world, initiating a campaign of global conquest. Fina concludes that the coup was orchestrated from the shadows by Cuvil's church, and everything had unfolded exactly as they had planned. He listens, his brow furrowed in thought. He internally questions this revelation, recalling that he was certain he had already crushed the seeds of that very coup. He is startled when Arya suddenly grabs his arm, eagerly asking for a next instruction and addressing him as master. Taken aback, he tells her there's no need to call him that, speaking her name with a hint of weariness. She vehemently disagrees, declaring that she cannot. Elves, she explains with fierce determination, must always repay a kindness. Since he freed her from slavery, she is absolutely bound to repay that debt. As they spoke, the demonic girl and Fina observe from the back of the wagon. The demonic girl remarks with a grin that Ryan seems to have a talent for taming people, especially considering how he's handling the elf. Fina calmly replies that it's only natural, given Ryan's inherent kindness. The demonic girl flushes, questioning this assessment of his character. She then turns her attention to Arya, demanding to know if her master has ever fought against Levitine. The question triggers a vivid memory for the demonic girl of a ferocious battle, a clash with a great dragon that seemed to warp the very landscape. Fina confirms it, stating that Ryan did indeed tame Levitine as part of a promise. The demonic girl reacts with furious disbelief, her hands balling into tight fists. Sometime later, the party arrives at the border town of Norg. Ryan announces that he needs to report their quest completion at the guild. He instructs the others to take Arya back to the inn, assuring them he'll return before dinner. He then turns to Fina with one more request, to help Arya get cleaned up and ensure she has a proper meal, since she couldn't have eaten well as a slave. Fina, slightly flustered, readily agrees. With his instructions given, he announces his departure. The demonic girl calls out after him, with a cheerful warning not to get injured. He pauses, glancing back over his shoulder with a confident smirk, and retorts that she should save that warning for his opponents. With that final remark, he turns and walks away, giving a casual wave. The three girls watch his retreating figure, the demonic girl looking particularly flustered by his parting shot. She noticed Fina's flushed cheeks and questioned the cause. Flustered, Fina insisted it was merely the evening sun hitting her face, just as Ryan, carrying a large sack, turned and walked through a nearby doorway. As he stepped into a cobblestone alley, his path was blocked by two burly men. One greeted him with condescension, calling him an E-ranker and asking if he was out gathering herbs again. Ryan's gaze hardened as he coolly asked what they wanted. The men continued their taunts, noting that they had seen him come to this town once before. They remarked that they had come specifically to see him, then pointedly asked if he was without his female companions today. One of them boasted that they were the ones who ran the guild in this town, mockingly asking if Ryan was unaware of them. A quiet understanding settled over Ryan. He recalled that when he was with Marcus, no one dared approach him. Alone, however, he was just another E-rank adventurer to them. He looked at them with a flat expression, stating that he understood. In a small town like this, he acknowledged he had no real power. He was, in his words, a great general. The seemingly self-deprecating remark was so pathetic that Ryan himself cringed, covering his face with his hand. The men stared, confused by his sudden gesture, as he wondered what nonsense he had just spouted. He dropped his hand and clarified their position for them. Since they ran the guild in this town, it meant no one should go against them. The men smirked in agreement, confirming his assessment. His expression then shifted entirely. A dangerous light emanated from his visible eye as he leaned forward slightly. "So," he asked, his voice low, "is there something you want to say?" A wave of pure dread washed over the two men, their faces freezing in shock and sudden, inexplicable terror. Utterly terrified, the two thugs screamed and scrambled away, stumbling over each other in their haste to escape. The nearby townsfolk stared, bewildered by the sudden panic. As they fled, Ryan glanced back with a faint, knowing smile. He made a mental note. From now on, he would have to choose his opponents more carefully. He returns to his room at the inn, the door clicking shut behind him. Inside, he finds a young elf, Arya, sound asleep in bed. He watches her peaceful breathing and concludes that she must have been exhausted. He watches her sleep, unaware of the thoughts that must have troubled her. She had followed him, calling him master, but her reasons went beyond mere gratitude. For reasons she couldn't explain, she had been separated from her homeland and taken as a slave. Her ordeal, culminating in the attack by bandits, must have placed an immense amount of stress on her. As he contemplates her situation, the door opens once more. Fina and the demonic girl enter, with Fina greeting him warmly. His attention is drawn to them, while Arya continues to dream, recalling how she had instinctively chosen him as her only path to survival. He turns his attention back to the bed and asks his two companions for their thoughts on the elf girl. The demonic girl leans forward, her expression one of intrigue. Fina admits she doesn't know much about elves, but expresses her relief that Arya seems to be doing well. Her calm observation is shattered when the demonic girl suddenly leaps onto the bed, startling Fina, who begins to say something. Flustered, Fina finishes her thought, explaining that she could tell the elf girl had been forcing herself to appear strong. Hearing her words, his expression firms with resolve. Then the answer is decided, he declares. In her sleep, Arya lets out a small, surprised sound. The next morning, over breakfast, his decision is revealed. Arya stares at him in disbelief, questioning what he means by his sudden announcement that they will be traveling to the elf village. Ryan takes a quiet moment, sipping from a mug. He muses to himself that the elf village is likely not a place one can easily approach. His stated intention is simple, to see Arya safely home and perhaps do a little sightseeing along the way. His casual reasoning prompts a flustered response from Arya, who insists she has done nothing to deserve such kindness and never expected a reward. Ryan calmly replies that if she truly wishes to repay him, guiding him through her village would be sufficient. Overwhelmed with emotion, tears well up in Arya's eyes as she gratefully accepts, calling him her master. As the group's next destination is settled, Ryan feels a bead of sweat form on his temple. He keeps his true, personal motive hidden from the others, his own desire to see the legendary elf village, a place straight out of fantasy tales. He knows he cannot voice this selfish wish aloud. The party arrives at the edge of a dense, sprawling woodland. Ryan identifies it as the Arklay Great Forest, the home of the elves. Arya wonders aloud if the elves will be friendly, given that he helped her. Ryan looks towards the forest and affirms that they should be. He asks if they are just ordinary elves. Arya's expression brightens as she explains that while most elves dislike humans, they are a race that absolutely repays their debts, so everything will be fine. The demonic girl watches her with a slight smile. Seeing her confident declaration, Ryan gently tells Arya that she doesn't need to force herself to say things she doesn't want to. At his words, Arya's cheerful demeanor fades, and she looks down, clutching her hands. She quietly asks if he could tell. Ryan confirms, adding that if she feels she has to hide things, then she should tell him everything. His own words cause him to pause, reflecting on the secrets he himself keeps. He thinks of Fina's identity as a saintess and Levitine's true nature as an ancient dragon, truths he cannot speak of. And beyond that, there were other truths he kept locked away. His reincarnation from a past life as a salaryman, and his true identity as a prince of the empire. These were things he felt he had to keep hidden to maintain trust. Turning back to Arya, he admits that it's the same for him. At his admission, Fina offers a gentle, knowing smile, while the demonic girl smirks. Arya looks on in surprise. Her surprise quickly melts into pure joy. With the understanding established, the group ventures into the forest. The demonic girl remarks on how deep the woods are, and Ryan agrees. The demonic girl shivers slightly, sensing the presence of those who seclude themselves in such a remote place. Ryan explains that among the various races, including beastmen and dwarves, only the elves chose to live in the forest rather than in a human country. He considered the long history of the world, a time when diverse races came to acknowledge one another through exchange, and yet, the elves were somehow left behind by the era. As he and his companions rested on a rocky outcrop, he mused that while the elves had chosen not to leave their forest, it was a decision they could not easily reverse. He recalled how humanity had found merit in cooperating with beastmen and dwarves, which implied there was no such benefit to be gained from the elves. Turning his thoughts inward, he asked Levitine if he had ever met an elf. The ancient dragon confirmed he had, but it was over 1,000 years ago, before his sealing. He then wondered aloud why the elves chose not to engage with humans. With a dismissive air, the demonic girl beside him answered with a single word, pride. She elaborated, explaining that the elves believed themselves to be the chosen kin of the gods, a race more beloved than any other on the terrestrial plane. Indeed, in a certain sense, the elves who could command spirit arts were the strongest of all races. This power, she continued with her arms crossed, led them to look down on weaker races like humans. She conceded, however, that the dragons were ultimately the strongest. Ryan quietly took this in. He pieced it all together. In that distant past, human magic was not as widespread. It was by learning magic and exchanging knowledge with other races that humanity grew, eventually causing the elves to lose their place in the world. This history seemed at odds with Arya's surprisingly normal attitude. He considered that perhaps the elves, too, had changed over the long years. His thoughts were interrupted when the demonic girl agreed with his unspoken conclusion. She then abruptly changed the subject, asking why he wasn't bathing with Fina and the others. As an image of Arya happily inviting Fina to the water surfaced in his mind, he could only stare back, completely baffled. He recoils, flustered by the demonic girl's question. He declares the idea of men and women bathing together to be shameless. The girl, unfazed, snaps back, questioning his strong reaction. She teases him, asking if he isn't interested in seeing a woman's skin, especially since he's a man. She continues her taunts, pointing out that Fina and Arya are bathing together at that very moment. She playfully suggests that as their companions, it's improper for them to see the skin of young, unmarried women. Annoyed, Ryan sharply tells her to be quiet. His thoughts drift to Fina. Her beauty is truly exceptional, he muses, far surpassing any of the women he had been assigned to by the Empire. The difference between them is absolute. He considers his own position. At 18 years old, he is a healthy young man, and he admits to himself that he would very much like to see a woman as beautiful as her. But he knows the danger. Fina is the one and only saintess of the Estia Church, a being who can communicate with the true God. If he were to make an improper advance and be spurned by the imperial family, it could ignite a new, all-out war. His train of thought is broken when the demonic girl asks if he was enslaved because Arya found him. From the water, Arya cheerfully confirms that she was indeed the one who found him. Suddenly, the sharp snap of a twig from the nearby woods catches his ear. He turns his head, instantly alert. From the river, Arya calls out his name in concern. The demonic girl, however, misinterprets his focus, asking with a smirk if he really wants to see them after all. Ryan, his patience wearing thin, dismisses her, calling her persistent. She continues, convinced she's right, stating that both she and Arya must be thinking that he secretly wants to look. As she speaks, another rustle echoes from the dense trees. The girl changes the subject, sitting beside him in the clearing. "By the way, master," she begins, her tone shifting to something more serious. She asks if he has noticed. With a grim expression, he confirms that he has. They are surrounded. He considers the unseen presence. A monster, he wonders, but dismisses the thought. A creature of that nature would exude a far more powerful aura. With his mind made up, he issues a simple command to the empty woods, "Come out." In response to his call, the forest remains still, yet the hidden figures now know they have been perceived. From the dense foliage, an eye watches them. Ryan sighs, remarking that their pointless skulking is over. With a sudden roar, the ambushers burst from the trees, leaping towards them. The attackers reveal themselves, a squad of elves, their bows drawn and arrows nocked. One of them mutters their identity, confirming Ryan's suspicion. The lead elf, a man with an eye patch, recoils in shock, sensing an incredible magical power emanating from the young man. What is this magic?" he stammers, demanding to know who Ryan is. With a calm, almost dismissive smile, Ryan simply states that he is a mere human. The demonic girl starts to move, calling out to her master, but he raises a hand, silently telling her to stand down. The elf leader, enraged, shouts for him to hold his tongue and looses an arrow. As the projectile flies, Ryan calmly instructs his companion, "Stay back." A full volley of arrows streaks through the air, only to clatter uselessly against an invisible shield just before reaching him. The elf leader stares in disbelief. Ryan plucks an arrow from the ground, examining it. He notes that it isn't an ordinary arrow, but one imbued with the power of wind spirits. He muses to himself, wondering how they could have possibly thought this level of power would be enough to harm him. The elven leader, his shock turning to fury, points a trembling finger at Ryan. "You insolent human," he bellows. "This is the sacred territory of us elves. We will defend it." The elven archers are met with a firm warning from the young man, Ryan. He offers to overlook their transgression if they release his companions, but makes it clear that any further advance will be met with force, for which they must be prepared. He stands firm, but his demonic companion observes that their adversaries do not seem inclined to listen. She adds that she had not come here to fight elves. The girl speculates that the elves' hostility might be a reaction to his overwhelming magical power. With a sigh, he expresses his frustration, having hoped for a peaceful resolution. His wish for peace goes unheeded. From the trees, the elven leader reflects on his initial plan, to demonstrate their superior standing and force a retreat. The deflected arrows littering the ground are a testament to that plan's failure. He realizes that his initial assessment was wrong. With their blood up, the intruders will not listen to reason. The only remaining option, he concludes, is to display an even greater power. Ryan, observing their unyielding stance, comes to a similar conclusion. He smirks, recognizing the classic confrontation unfolding. With a complex magical sigil glowing brightly before him, he declares his intent to give them a special demonstration, a display of the overwhelming difference in their power. The battle with the elves begins. An arrow, glowing with power, flies toward Ryan, but he stops it dead in its tracks with an outstretched palm, the impact creating a visible shockwave. The elven archers react in disbelief. The one who fired the shot curses in frustration, exclaiming that he had poured all of his magical power into the arrow, yet it failed to even reach its target. He turns to face them, a confident smile on his face. Seeing their shock, he calmly asks what's wrong and if their next attack is ready yet. As one of the archers stares, bewildered, Ryan extends his hand again. He tells the elf that if he has no will to fight, he should simply go to sleep. With that, he strikes the elf squarely in the chest, sending him reeling. Ryan then addresses the remaining elves, stating that he will take them on one by one. Another elf warrior rushes him with a sword, but Ryan catches the blade between his hands and shatters it with ease, leaving the attacker stunned. The elven leader, gritting his teeth in frustration at the sight of his men being so easily defeated, lunges forward to engage Ryan himself. He brings his weapon down in a powerful strike, but Ryan blocks the blow effortlessly with just his forearm, his expression remaining calm and observant. The leader pulls back, his arm trembling slightly from the impact. He remarks with surprise that someone can withstand his palm strike, acknowledging that his opponent is a worthy one. Ryan smirks, brushing his hair from his face as he taunts the elf, questioning how many more of those attacks he can endure. Far below, hidden amongst the trees, the demonic girl watches the confrontation unfold, her eyes wide with astonishment. Elsewhere, while bathing in a tranquil spring, Fina's relaxation is broken. She turns to her companion, Arya, asking if she heard a sound just now. Her companion confirms it, her eyes wide with surprise. A sharp sound echoes through the trees, and Fina, sensing trouble, urges that they get out of the water immediately. The source of the sound is soon apparent. The elven leader and his subordinates are strewn across the ground, groaning in pain from Ryan's swift counterattack. Nearby, Ryan explains his actions to a flustered Arya. He states that he only fought back because he was attacked so suddenly. Arya apologizes profusely, but he calmly tells her not to worry about it. He then turns his attention fully to her, stating that, regardless, he requires an explanation for the assault. He elaborates, his voice cold, that he didn't bother listening to them because they approached with clear, killing intent. He considers it an act of mercy that he only subdued them to this extent. Watching from a short distance, Fina is visibly impressed by Ryan's power. Arya, however, looks away with a blush, muttering that elven warriors are supposed to be stronger than humans. Her act of kindness does not go unnoticed. The elven leader, now recovered, bows deeply to Fina, apologizing and realizing she must have helped his comrades. Fina confirms she healed them, and he thanks her earnestly as Ryan looks on, unimpressed. He watches the exchange, recalling that this elf was the only one who attempted to guard Fina during the initial confrontation. With a thoughtful expression, Ryan asks the elf for his name. The elf straightens up, his demeanor changing from apologetic to proud. He introduces himself as Surt, the great warrior of the Arkly Great Forest. As Ryan processes this, Arya excitedly explains that a great warrior is the strongest of all their fighters and their leader. He observes the assembled elves, his gaze settling on their leader. A quiet understanding dawns on him as he murmurs that the man must be something like a knight commander. The elven leader, Surt, bows his head slightly. He formally states his wish to apologize for attacking Ryan, the benefactor who saved their kinswoman, Arya. Ryan dismisses the apology, telling him not to worry about it. He adds that he is already well aware that elves generally dislike humans. Overwhelmed by this generosity, Surt surges forward and enthusiastically grabs Ryan's hands, offering his thanks. The sudden proximity makes Ryan flinch, clearly uncomfortable. After creating some distance, he turns to his companions and declares that the problem of returning Arya to her village is now solved. Arya, surprised for a moment, quickly agrees. He notices Arya's bashful expression and sheepish giggle. He asks what's wrong, wondering aloud if she had perhaps forgotten something. As she remains quiet, he offers a gentle, reassuring gesture, placing his hands softly on her head. The simple kindness brings tears to her eyes. She thanks him, calling him master. He gently corrects her, explaining that the title was merely for convenience when he rescued her. Now that she is back with her kin, he insists she is not his property and should just call him by his name. Arya looks troubled, asking if she really has to stop using the title she's grown so accustomed to. With a slight grimace, he bluntly tells her that it's unsettling. His directness clears away her hesitation. Her face breaks into a radiant smile as she reaches out a hand, joyfully calling out his name, Ryan Quinn, and offering a sincere thank you. As the group follows Surtur through the dense woods, the elven leader questions Ryan's party. He asks if they're certain about guiding humans into the village, explaining that while they're grateful, it is not their custom. Ryan, walking behind him, silently wonders about the abrupt shift from being attacked to being welcomed. He scans the surrounding forest, a realization dawning on him. The subtle distortion in the air makes it clear. They're inside some form of illusionary barrier. This, he concludes, must be why the elven village has remained hidden. His thoughts are confirmed when Fina remarks on how well he understood the situation, noting that she also perceived a slight wavering in the space around them. Ryan quietly affirms her observation. Without warning, the very air seems to peel back and shatter around them. The illusionary barrier fractures violently, startling everyone in the party. While Fina and the demonic girl look on in confused surprise, Ryan's gaze sharpens. He immediately identifies the source of the disturbance, stating plainly, "This barrier." The elves are stunned. Surtur demands to know why Ryan looks so surprised, shouting that the elven barrier is not something that can be broken so easily. Arya adds with alarm that the barrier, which should only be dispelled by following the correct path, is dissolving as if it were made of paper. As the last remnants of the magic that protected their village for centuries crumble away, Surtur watches in disbelief. Ryan steps forward, pushing the elf aside as he tells him to move. He holds out his hands, and a swirling vortex of light and energy manifests before him. With a quiet confidence, he declares that he has fixed it, and that there should be no more complaints. The elves are left speechless by the display. Surtur stares, dumbfounded, and wonders aloud if Ryan could possibly be a god. The demonic girl laughs off the suggestion, stating that he is simply their master. Fina, however, offers an explanation, revealing to the stunned elves that Ryan is a special person, chosen by God. He turns to Fina, telling her not to say such ominous things. Unfazed, she simply asks him what could possibly be ominous about being chosen by a god. He responded to Fina's grand declaration with a disarming smile, placing a hand over his chest. He apologized to her, but stated plainly that he despises gods. He then elaborated, explaining with a dismissive expression that he wants absolutely nothing to do with any god, as they are directly connected to his potential demise. Fina could only look on, surprised by his reasoning. Before the conversation could continue, the elven leader, Surt, interrupted and gestured for them to proceed. Fina pointed towards a path, asking if the source of the powerful magic was that way, but Ryan immediately corrected her, identifying it as a trap. Searcher laughed, amused by Ryan's perception. He asked what would happen if they were to proceed down that path, then answered his own question, stating that they would simply be attacked by the elven sentinels. In response to the elf's confidence, Ryan calmly told Fina not to worry. He explained that even if they were forced to fight, he did not consider the elves his enemy. Searcher assured them that as long as they followed him, there would be no problem. After a short walk, the group arrived at a breathtaking overlook. Spread out before them, nestled high within the forest canopy, was a vast and hidden village. As they took in the sight, Searcher proudly announced that this was their home. Arya turned to Ryan with a bright, welcoming smile, formally introducing the settlement as Arkley, the village of the forest elves. Ryan and his companions, Fina, Arya, and the young demon girl, finally arrive at the elven village. The settlement is nestled within a lush forest, its quaint, timber-framed houses a welcome sight. Taking in the view, Ryan confirms to himself that this is their destination. He remarks that it is a truly beautiful place, and Arya cheerfully agrees with him. Surveying the surroundings, he observed that the air is clear and dense with magical power. He now understands why the spirits favor this location, as they only inhabit such places. As they proceed, a male elf wearing a headband approaches, calling out to Arya. He offers to guide them directly to the village elder, much to Arya's surprise. Before she can respond, an elven man and woman rush forward, tears of joy streaming down their faces as they call her their daughter. They cry out in relief, explaining they had heard she was captured by humans and feared they would never see her again. Her mother pulls her into a tight embrace, overcome with emotion, simply glad to have her back safely. From short distance, Ryan, Fina, and the demon girl watch the heartwarming reunion with gentle smiles. Fina quietly expresses her happiness that Arya could be reunited with her parents, and Ryan nods in agreement. The elf guide, seeing the beautiful scene and recognizing them as Arya's saviors, leads the group toward the elder's house. Inside, the village elder bows deeply, offering his sincere gratitude. He then apologizes profusely on behalf of the village warriors, explaining they caused trouble without knowing the full circumstances. Ryan tells the elder not to worry about it, but admits he is curious why the elves seemed intent on killing them from the very beginning. The elder's expression grows somber as he prepares to explain. He reveals that recently, many humans have been encroaching on their lands, putting everyone on edge. The situation is dire, he explains, because elves are being captured. The elder listens as the demonic girl dismisses the idea of a simple ambush. She asserts that while a child like Arya might seem an easy target, the power of a single elf is far from insignificant, suggesting there must be more to the story. He interrupts, noting the late hour. To celebrate their kinswoman's safe return, he announces a banquet will be held that evening. He then offers them lodging, directing them to a guest house on the village's east side, which Ryan gratefully accepts. The group is led to their accommodations, a quaint building with a thatched roof nestled amongst the trees. Later, inside the guest house, Ryan begins to analyze the situation. He remarks that while some humans are strong, elves excel at group tactics and spirit arts, making them difficult to capture. He finds it hard to believe they were simply lured away. Arya confirms his suspicion, stating that things have changed recently. She recounts the moment of her capture. Though she resisted, the spirits that always aided her suddenly vanished. Powerless without them, she was unable to continue fighting and was fitted with a slave collar. Fina notes that the disappearance of spirits can happen, but Arya insists this was different. She explains that even when facing fearsome monsters, the spirits had never fled like that before. It was an unprecedented event. Arya continues, explaining that the group of humans was strange. The moment a hooded figure among them made a move, the spirits instantly fled. She recalls being in the forest to watch for shooting stars, yet the attackers seemed to know her exact location. Ryan listens intently as she concludes, expressing her belief that the other captured elves must have suffered the same fate after trying to hide. The image of the hooded figure surfaces, a menacing presence, arms outstretched, employing a troublesome art capable of nullifying spirit magic entirely. He looks down at Arya, who apologizes meekly. Ryan reassures her, stating that she has nothing to be sorry for. He now understands the deep-seated reason for the elves' hostility. He listens as Arya speaks, her voice tinged with a sadness that feels deeper than mere fear. She questions why others would covet what they possess, unable to comprehend the satisfaction it could bring them. His gaze remains fixed, absorbing her words. Her question hangs in the air, born from a painful memory of mass captors who could never understand the elves' simple desire to live in peace. Tears stream down her face as she recalls the injustice, her hand clenching into a small, defiant fist. As Fina embraces the distraught Arya, Ryan addresses the room. He declares that he will not be swayed by others. He must carve his own path forward. His statement catches the girls off guard. He continues, explaining that Arya's ordeal has provided a crucial clue. Fina, her expression laced with concern, asks if he is certain. He admits that without having witnessed it firsthand, he lacks concrete proof, but his conviction remains unshaken. His mind races, searching for a connection. He recalls the world's framework from his past life, the game known as Fantasy Arcadia. In that version of reality, there was no mention of spirit-nullifying arts. Yet, he remembers a specific event, a story that involved the spirits. The memory solidifies into a single, chilling phrase, spirit devouring. He pieces it all together. The art of spirit devouring isn't overwhelmingly powerful on its own, but to those who depend on spirits, it is a devastating counter, a technique that steals their strength. The wielder of this power was none other than the god of destruction, Kewal. A grimace twists his face. His enemy is as persistent and repulsive as a cockroach. His dark expression does not go unnoticed. Fina remarks on his terrifying look, while Arya calls his name in concern. He quickly composes himself, offering a brief apology and dismissing it as merely sensing a faint, unsettling presence. Meanwhile, in a dark chamber, Great Bishop Kewal addresses an unseen subordinate. He explains that while he would use such a power against common slave traders or adventurers, the involvement of his own church complicates matters, requiring a different approach. Back in the relative safety of their room, he looks at his companions with renewed resolve. He posits that if a trap has indeed been set for them, then their best course of action is to spring it with open eyes and relish the confrontation. He watches the preparations with a calm smile. Beside him, Arya expresses her excitement for the grand welcome they are receiving, to which he agrees, admitting he is looking forward to it as well. As night falls, the elven village is illuminated by the warm glow of numerous torches, setting the stage for the promised festivities. The celebration erupts in full force. Music plays as the elves drink, dance, and share a bountiful feast, their spirits high. Amidst the revelry, Fina remarks to Ryan how wonderfully lively the party has become. He concurs, admitting that he hadn't anticipated such an extravagant affair. His expression sobers as he turns to Fina, explaining that the true issue lies with the elves themselves. Their deep connection to their spirits, he notes, is a significant vulnerability. Just then, Arya approaches him, asking if he is enjoying himself. He confirms that it is a novel experience for her. She then asks about Laiva, and Ryan's gaze shifts to a crowd where Surtur is holding court. Arya speculates that he might be engaging in a test of strength. In the center of the crowd, a challenge begins. A small, gloved hand firmly clasps a much larger, muscular one, initiating an arm-wrestling match as the onlookers lean in. The challenger is revealed to be the small demonic girl, facing off against the formidable Surtur. He boasts of Laiva's victory and challenges anyone to defeat him. The girl eagerly volunteers, and Surtur, recognizing her as the one his master mentioned, confidently accepts. She glances at the line of defeated elven warriors, a confident smirk on her face. She announces that she cannot simply watch them fall one by one, and as a great warrior in her own right, she will be his next challenger. With a sudden, powerful move, she slams his arm onto the table, defeating him instantly. Surtur shouts in disbelief, his eyes wide with shock. The girl leans in, a triumphant look on her face, as Fina and Arya watch in stunned silence. She continued to apply pressure, her small hand easily overpowering the elven champions. Surtur, gritting his teeth, refused to yield, muttering that he was not done yet. With a confident smile, she declared that if he was truly the strongest of the elves, then from this day forward, she would take that title. Her words left the warrior utterly stunned. Her outward confidence, however, masked an internal shock. A flicker of disbelief crossed her face as she realized that, for a brief moment, she was actually being pushed back, however slightly. That momentary surprise hardened into fierce determination. She roared that such a miracle wouldn't last, her eyes darting towards her master, Ryan, as if for acknowledgement. He watched the spectacle unfold with a quiet, unreadable expression. In response to her renewed effort, Surtur's muscles bulged, his face contorted in a mixture of agony and astonishment. He questioned if he had awakened some latent power within her, but then a startling realization struck him. The overwhelming force wasn't coming from her, but surging from deep within his own body. The sudden surge of power was enough to turn the tables, and the elven crowd erupted into a deafening roar of victory for their champion. Standing beside Ryan, the demonic girl's face flushed with embarrassment, utterly mortified by the unexpected turn of events. Later, seated before a lavish spread of food, Ryan calmly explained that he had given the elf a bit of a boost. He suggested they had enjoyed themselves enough and should now eat to recover their spirits. The demonic girl, still sulking, could only grumble in response. As they ate, a quiet voice cut through the festive noise. An elderly, hooded elf, her eyes obscured by dark goggles, approached their table. "A fine spectacle, traveler," she commented, her tone carrying an air of ancient wisdom. Her gaze was sharp and penetrating as she leaned on her gnarled staff. "You are no mere traveler, are you?" she stated plainly. Ryan met her stare, a single question forming in his mind. Just who was this mysterious old woman? An elderly elf woman, leaning on a gnarled staff, approaches Ryan. She addresses him as a traveler, observing that he does not seem to be an ordinary person. She remarks that his perception is quite impressive. Ryan, in turn, asks if she had noticed his presence. The elder chuckles, admitting her age but claiming she looks even older than the village elder. She then directly asks Ryan who he is, stating that he is more than just a figment of an old woman's imagination. He asks what he should be called. With a knowing look, she replies that he is known as Sylph. The name gives Ryan a strange, unsettling feeling. He pushes the thought aside and asks what business she has with him. The elder explains that she wishes to thank him for saving her child, prompting a confused Ryan to ask, "Your child?" She clarifies that she is speaking of Arya. With a warm smile, she explains that to the elves, all of their people are like their own children. Ryan dismisses the need for thanks, stating he only came to the village for sightseeing. The elder seems amused by his response. He then turns the conversation, asking her how she perceives this village. He answers his own question, gazing at the torchlit surroundings. It is a beautiful place, he muses, overflowing with nature, where the life force in the forest trees is strong. It is a place untouched by human hands, where time itself seems to have stopped, like a paradise, a hidden world. But his thoughts turn grim. He reflects that humans destroy forests, raise and slaughter animals, while elves live in harmony with the woods. Following the providence of nature, it is humans who are truly destroying it. He concludes that as long as humans and elves can speak to one another, an eternal, unchanging relationship is impossible. To him, the very tranquility of this village is more terrifying than anything, for it feels like a departure from nature's true, often brutal, providence. He continues speaking to the elderly elf, acknowledging the concept of limits. He muses that no matter how one tries to establish boundaries, a prepared opponent will always employ a spirit eater. With a grim expression, he concludes that an attack is merely a matter of time. The crone observes that he is different from other humans, warning that if his spirit power were sealed, he would be completely at their mercy. She then presents her request as guidance from the spirits themselves, pleading for him to help them. His expression hardens instantly. He demands to know if she is testing him, warning her that she is gravely mistaken to think she can deceive his eyes. He threatens to tear away the very skin she has woven with her magic, causing the old elf to flinch in surprise. In response, the crone moves with unexpected speed, lunging forward with a soft chuckle. Her hand shoots out toward his face, catching him completely off guard. She stops abruptly, her hand hovering near her own cheek. With a playful smile, she apologizes, explaining that she was merely testing him with an imitation, leaving him momentarily stunned. As she speaks again, her voice changes, becoming clearer and smoother. She asks him to forgive her current appearance, acknowledging the shift in her tone. He immediately realizes the truth, accusing her of using illusion magic to alter her form. He states that his own body is physically present, unlike hers. The crone seems surprised he could tell, but then notes that the fluctuations of his own magic make it obvious. He presses his deduction, concluding her form is a puppet and her true self is far away, likely confined to a sealed space. The crone confirms this, lamenting that her real body is immobile. The knowledge that such a powerful being exists, yet is trapped, gives him pause. Her playful demeanor returns as she winks, saying there are benefits to her true self remaining unnoticed. She then becomes serious again, asking why he is following her and reminding him of her earlier plea for help. She explains plainly that the village is being targeted by humans, and she simply wants his help. She then poses a question. If she were to grant him the power, could he solve the problem? Gripping her staff, she adds that her own power cannot be used lightly, as it would deviate from the rules of nature. He considered her offer, acknowledging the troublesome nature of the situation. He explained that even if he wanted to, he couldn't simply watch over them or offer help. The old elf, leaning on her staff, agreed that his position was indeed a difficult one. She then questioned what precisely he meant by help. A warm smile spread across her face as she confidently assured him that he could leave that part entirely to her. His gaze drifted toward the village, a vision of a brighter future for the elves filling his mind, a future where their people could flourish. Turning back to the old elf, he warned her not to regret her decision. In response, she cheerfully asked if this meant he would finally listen to her request. Under the starlight, he declared that he would bear the full responsibility for whatever came next. The old elf chuckled, admitting that while she may appear frail, she is quite stubborn. She promised that if he was to be her champion, a generous reward would be prepared for him. With the agreement made, he turned and walked away. As he departed, her voice called out, entrusting her power to him. He paused, closing his eyes to receive her blessing. He walked in the moonlit forest, guided by the light of the world tree. But as he moved deeper into the woods, a rustle in the undergrowth revealed a group of cloaked figures, their forms barely visible in the darkness. One of the figures stepped forward, blocking his path and demanding to know his destination. Startled, Ryan's first thought was that they were elves, but a closer look revealed his mistake. They were human. He questioned their presence at such a late hour, realizing they were far from ordinary thugs. The leader of the group spoke with contempt, stating that he had instructed his underlings that only obedient beasts were useful. He then menacingly asked if Ryan intended to defy their will. The assassin revealed their identity: the Black Wolves, an assassination unit under the command of Cuval. Ryan was taken aback, wondering how they could possibly know that name. The leader declared his fate sealed, stating that no one who sees their faces is permitted to live. Surrounded, Ryan's expression hardened as he prepared to fight, vowing to tear all 5 of them limb from limb. He met the charge with an unblinking, intense gaze. One of the assassins lunged forward, dagger glinting, but Ryan moved with impossible speed, dropping low to evade the strike. In a fluid motion, he seized the attacker's wrist and arm, twisting it behind their back with a sickening crunch. The assassin cried out in agony as their comrades watched, frozen in shock. With the first assailant neutralized, he turned his attention to the remaining 4. A confident smirk played on his lips as he remarked that his opponent was simply outmatched. His display of overwhelming power shattered their resolve. The remaining assassins trembled, one even pleading for help. Ryan, however, showed no mercy, stating that he had no time to waste. He then made them an offer. If they didn't want to die, they would answer his questions. He promised to let them escape in the order they provided useful information. However, he added a chilling threat. If he merely felt like they were lying, he would snap their necks. The threat was more than enough. 4 of the assassins turned and fled into the forest without a second thought. Ryan watched them go, musing that they would likely be attacked by the forest's monsters anyway. His attention returned to the one remaining assassin, still writhing on the ground. He calmly asked if the man wanted to die. The captive could only whimper in response. Ryan then prepared to begin his interrogation. Standing under the crescent moon, he spoke with a relaxed confidence. He suggested that while they waited for the main force to arrive, they might as well enjoy some moon viewing's sake, treating the grave situation as a mere prelude. Under the light of a crescent moon, Fina's gaze swept across the courtyard, her expression anxious as she searched for someone. Her brow furrowed with concern, a faint blush rising to her cheeks as her search proved fruitless. Her troubled state drew the attention of the demonic girl, who approached and asked Fina what was wrong. The girl, addressed as Levitine, took a bite of an apple as Fina explained her worry. She couldn't find Ryan, she said, even though they had been walking together just a moment ago. Fina suggested that perhaps they should return to their room, but Levitine simply continued to eat, a pensive look on her face. She then began to tease Fina, asking if she was lonely without her master and should just come back. Flustered, Fina quickly insisted that wasn't at all. Her denial faltered, her cheeks flushed as she trailed off, lost in her own troubled thoughts. Standing beside Levitine, she gazed out toward the village gate and confessed that, for some reason, her heart was pounding. Meanwhile, in the woods beyond that gate, a bandit leader received a report that his advance party was in position. He grumbled that they were late, but his complaint was cut short by the shocking sight of his men lying defeated all around him. He looked up to see a lone figure standing over them. It was Ryan, who offered a chilling apology for the delay. The stunned leader demanded to know who he was, realizing the stranger must have killed his subordinates. Ryan simply smiled, pressing a blade to the man's throat and asking, "So what if I did?" He met the bandit leader's order to kill him with a calm smirk. As the brigands charged, he simply noted that they were an angry bunch. With a casual gesture, several dark orbs materialized around him, ready to receive the assault. The orbs shot forward, erupting with concussive force that sent the charging men flying. The bandit leader could only stare in disbelief, his face contorting in shock as his subordinates were effortlessly thrown aside. He casually addressed the stunned leader, musing aloud whether that was half, or perhaps 2/3, of his forces. Ryan noted that there were still others breathing, correctly deducing that this small group couldn't have been the main unit. The bandit leader trembled with rage, cursing under his breath. Ryan met his fury with a placid smile, asking what was wrong and pointing out that he hadn't moved a single step, having only launched a bit of magic. In response, the leader changed tactics, bellowing at his remaining men to kill Ryan with magic from a distance. His subordinates complied, gathering dark energy in their hands as Ryan stood his ground, watching them prepare. Their combined spells converged on his position, detonating in a brilliant flash of force. Believing the attack successful, the bandit leader shouted in triumph, questioning if they had finally gotten him. But as the dust settled, the leader's triumphant expression faltered. The spot where Ryan had stood was empty. He couldn't comprehend it, muttering that Ryan had been completely defenseless and should have been obliterated. From the shadows of the surrounding trees, a soft, confident chuckle echoed through the clearing. He reappeared without a single scratch, much to the leader's utter shock. The man stammered, unable to believe Ryan was unharmed. Ryan simply smiled, asking if an attack of that level was all they could manage, and assuring them that it was far from over. With their turn finished, he announced that it was now his. He extended a hand, palm open, ready to unleash his own power upon the terrified bandits. He conjured a complex magical array before him, a spell he called Meteor. The bandit leader stared in disbelief, gasping at the sheer volume of magical energy. With a confident smirk, Ryan clarified that it was merely a meteor shower created from magic. With a thrust of his hand, he unleashed the spell. A blinding flash of light erupted from his position, engulfing the surrounding area in raw power. Beams of pure energy rained down from the sky, striking the ground and the bandits with devastating force, tearing the earth asunder. Amidst the smoldering aftermath, the bandit leader staggered to his feet, bewildered by what had just occurred. He called out for his men, but received no reply. Ryan appeared before him, expressing mild surprise that the man had managed to endure his meteor spell. The lone survivor brandished his sword, demanding to know who his attacker was. With a chilling smile, Ryan offered to tell him, calling it a parting gift for his journey to the underworld. He formally introduced himself. "My name is Ryan, the one who will destroy the god Cuval." The bandit leader was stunned, unable to comprehend how a mere human could possibly destroy a god. Ryan simply affirmed that it could be done. His eyes narrowed with unshakable resolve as he declared that he was born for that very purpose. The bandit's face contorted in terror, the realization dawning that his opponent was no human. With a dismissive gesture, Ryan announced that their conversation was over. But as he prepared to strike the final blow, two figures materialized in a flash of light, blocking his path. One, a man in a hooded robe and glasses, greeted him calmly, remarking on the presence of a fearsome mage. Ryan's eyes fell upon the newcomer's robe, recognizing the insignia. He questioned if the man was also of the Cuval sect. The man confirmed it, introducing himself as Isaac, one of the great bishops, much to Ryan's astonishment. He stood before the great bishop, Isaac, who began to speak of the past. Isaac recalled the history of the great bishops, noting that the Black Curtain, who had once turned him into a god of destruction, was another of their rank, Great Bishop Odie. He continued with a confident smile, acknowledging that Ryan was a powerful being, incomparable to anyone he had dealt with before. Yet, he confessed to a sense of fear, admitting it was startling that a mere human could attain such heights of power. Isaac then questioned if Ryan was truly serious about destroying the god Cuval, dismissing it as a boast. Ryan's response was firm and unwavering. Of course, with a snap of his fingers, Isaac declared that he could not simply overlook such a threat. Instead of attacking Ryan, however, Isaac turned to the captive bandit leader. He touched the man's face, telling him to rejoice as he was about to be granted the power of a god. The bandit cried out in terror as Isaac presented a small, dark, writhing object. The object was forced upon the bandit, whose body immediately began to convulse. He let out a horrifying scream as his flesh dissolved, melting into a bubbling, black ooze that splashed onto the forest floor. The grotesque puddle of liquid continued to bubble and coalesce, its form shifting unnaturally on the ground. From the black ooze, a new form began to rise. It solidified into a tall, monstrous humanoid, its dark body marked with glowing white sigils. Watching the creature take shape, Ryan's expression shifted to a confident smirk as he mused that he would have to face this once more. He stood his ground, his eyes narrowed as he confronted the power of the god Cuval made manifest. The demonic hand of the Cuval sect had reached for him yet again. Under the pale moonlight, a towering, featureless monster made of shadow looms, its presence heralded as the attacking power of the god of destruction. Facing it, Cheyenne stands his ground, unimpressed. He calls the creature a nuisance, questioning if its sole purpose is to bring an end to all life. As he confronts the creature, a man named Isaac steps out from the trees with a sinister grin. He addresses the monster directly, encouraging it to go on a rampage as it pleases. His gaze fixed on Isaac, Cheyenne suddenly realizes that the monstrous entity has vanished from sight. The creature reappears in an instant, its body contorting as if letting out a silent, agonizing scream. He observes the creature's behavior, likening it to a newborn. With a sigh, he remarks that even a B-grade zombie movie would present a more formidable foe as he summons a sphere of light into his palm, a magic circle glowing at his feet. The blast of light strikes the monster squarely, causing it to recoil. Cheyenne notes with satisfaction that the creature appears to retain a sense of pain. Deciding he has seen enough, he rushes forward and strikes the creature's torso with a powerful open palm blow. The force of the impact severs the monster's arm, which falls lifelessly to the ground. Cheyenne reflects that while he finds it unpleasant to be wielded by the power of the god of destruction, it is undeniably a force he can command with his own fingertips. The wounded monster seems to declare that this very power of destruction is its source, the force that will guide it toward annihilation. This was not how things were supposed to be. In the illusory Arcadia, Cheyenne Granvania had destroyed every path to ruin. By crushing the destruction flags, he should have secured a world where he could live freely. But his actions to prevent Great Bishop Cuval from continuing his schemes have led to this. His fist trembles with frustration. He faces the monstrous creature, declaring that no matter how many times it and its master try to kill him, he will be the one to crush them. A complex magical circle glows brightly in his outstretched palm. With a powerful shout, he unleashes a torrent of pure energy from the circle, striking the dark, fluid creature head-on. He roars for the remnants of the god of destruction to vanish, proclaiming that things like them are not needed in this world. The black, viscous monster writhes and contorts, its form destabilizing under the force of the magical assault. Cheyenne watches with a grim expression, realizing that an attack of this level is not enough to stop it as the creature's fluid body begins to pull itself back together. He turns his focus to the true source of the problem, declaring that he will have Isaac pay for this grudge. From a hidden location, Isaac gasps, clutching his head in sudden pain. Shine appears directly before him, comparing Isaac's skulking to that of a cockroach. Isaac is stunned, questioning how he was found when his magic should have concealed him perfectly. He insists that his magic manipulation was flawless and that being discovered should have been impossible. Shine smirks, remarking that it's quite a claim to call his sloppy magic perfect, especially when he left a trail of it leading right to him. He then explains that this is how one truly erases their magic, bringing a hand up to his face as his presence seems to fade into nothing. Isaac can only watch, his eyes wide with disbelief. Isaac stumbles back, clutching his head in shock as Shine disappears completely. He frantically looks around the now empty clearing, shouting, wondering where he went. He stands in disbelief, his hand grasping at the fading, transparent image of Shine. He questions aloud how it was possible to erase one's presence and magic so completely, sneering that Shine would dare call himself perfect after performing such a minimal feat. His grip tightens on nothing, a guttural sound of frustration escaping him as his fingers clench empty air. Suddenly, a hand seizes his wrist. Shine has reappeared, his face contorted with fury. He snarls for Isaac to suffer, labeling him and the rest of the Cuval cult as insects that he will crush so thoroughly they will never rise against him again. With that vow, his foot slams down, kicking up a cloud of dust as he releases his foe. He turns his back as Isaac slumps to the ground, but pauses, glancing over his shoulder with a flicker of uncertainty. From the forest floor, Isaac clicks his tongue in annoyance. He admits to himself that he misjudged the amount of force to use, having intended to draw out the suffering for as long as possible. As Shine walks away, he comes to an abrupt halt. A realization dawns on him. In his anger, he forgot to ask Isaac his purpose for being at the village. He looks back over the sun-drenched landscape toward the distant settlement. He dismisses the thought, deciding it doesn't matter. If they get in his way, he will simply destroy them all. The scene transitions to a peaceful, wide view of the elven village, its thatched roof houses nestled securely behind a wooden palisade. Inside, Shine walks alongside Fina, who tells him how worried she was. He reassures her, but she apologizes, feeling responsible. Their conversation is interrupted as Arya and another young elf run towards them, joyfully shouting Shine's name. He and Fina walk through the tranquil elven village. Fina remarked that the abundant nature made even a simple walk enjoyable, and he readily agreed. As they continued, Fina expressed her gladness that Levitine had come for a walk as well. Shine noted that while it was early, it was better than her lazing about, but Arya chimed in, explaining that Levitine was simply exhausted from the boisterous banquet the night before. In reality, Levitine was still sound asleep, having been unceremoniously tossed into her bed. Outside, unaware, Shine mused that a quiet walk like this wasn't so bad on occasion. Fina smiled warmly in agreement. Her smile widened as she confessed that she had never been outside the St. Estia church before, making this time feel wonderful. He looked at her with concern, asking if she had truly spent all her time confined to the church simply because of an oracle. She confirmed with a gentle expression that she had, explaining that she had always believed it was simply her natural lot in life. Her quiet acceptance left him momentarily speechless, making him wonder how she could have then decided to travel all by herself. Fina explained that it was because of another oracle, adding with a cheerful laugh that she had at least studied the basics of traveling from books. He pointed out that it was unheard of for a woman to travel alone without a guard, especially one as beautiful as she was. The compliment caught Fina completely off guard, her face flushing red as Arya looked on in shock. Shine then assured Fina that as long as he was with her, he would protect her. Nearby, a now-awake Levitine seethed with irritation. Their conversation was interrupted when Arya spotted someone. It was the elderly elf, Sylph. Shine greeted her, asking if she was also out for a walk. As Sylph gave a knowing smile, Fina suddenly looked pale and unwell. He turned his attention back to the old elf, asking if this was sufficient and offering his thanks. After she nodded, he clarified that he hadn't done whatever it was specifically for her sake. He continued, dismissing the event as merely a tale about a pest he happened upon during a nighttime walk in the forest. The old elf smiled knowingly, agreeing to leave it at that, as a thought seemed to strike Cheyenne regarding her gratitude. The elven elder, Sylph, continues her plea to the dark-haired warrior, Ryan, as the young elf, Arya, looks on. Sylph clarifies her request, asking that before anything else, he help the other children who have been captured. She acknowledges that he has already saved her own children, and of course, she will reward him for it. Ryan, however, questions if this is a balanced exchange for his efforts. Sylph assures him she is serious and will provide a reward worthy of the task. Her tone then shifts, becoming more pointed. She poses a chilling question to him. What if she were to tell him that a pest is currently clinging to him? The revelation strikes Ryan, his eyes widening in shock. He takes a moment to consider her words, his gaze turning upward before his expression hardens with resolve. He decides to hear what she has to say. The scene shifts to a different location entirely. A massive, weathered stone ziggurat rising from the heart of a dense, ancient forest as birds circle its peak under a pale sky. Within the dark confines of this structure, the grim reality of the captured elves is revealed. Arya and several others are trapped behind the heavy bars of a cage, their bodies bruised and their faces etched with fear. They're the ones caught in the gaze of the Star Eater. Standing before the elven elder in the quiet village, Ryan demands to know where she intends to send him. The elder, known as Sylph, calmly replies that he must already be aware of the destination, the enemy's main base. She elaborates with a knowing look, confirming that she knows the location where the elven children are being held captive. The thought brings to mind a previous strategic discussion with the elven leader, Surt. He had observed that the enemy seemed to be gathering in one location for a specific purpose. Ryan had reasoned that if they knew the location, an attack would be feasible, as the elves' combat prowess was not to be underestimated. However, Surtur had regretfully pointed out the flaw in that plan. They simply lacked the numbers and the strength for a direct assault. A counterattack, he had concluded, would almost certainly end with all of them being captured. Back in the present, Sylph acknowledges that if this is the main base of the group that attacked the previous night, their numbers should be far greater. Ryan's eyes narrow with suspicion, and he asks if she was watching him then. The elder just smiles, telling him not to worry, as she was merely concerned for him, before adding that there is one thing she must tell him. His face twists in anger. He declares that he hates being tested and despises those who break their promises. Sylph listens patiently, then assures him that he will, of course, be rewarded for protecting the village. She continues, however, explaining that a simple reward is not enough. With that alone, she says, the true smiles will not return to the faces of the children. He remains silent, his mind racing. For all her provocative words, he senses no killing intent from her whatsoever. He cannot help but wonder who this old woman truly is. She seems to read his thoughts, explaining that her power is not something to be used lightly. She reveals that she watched his entire battle with the Black Wolves, and he never even sensed her presence. She could have simply stood by and done nothing to help. Her statement hints at a fundamental law of the world. Beings who possess such immense magic are subject to constraints and limitations. This is a power akin to that of the ancient gods. The elven elder, Sylph, playfully wags a finger at Ryan, informing him that any attempt to discern her true identity is strictly forbidden. He lets out a weary sigh, dismissing her games. He insists she get straight to the point and tell him the location of the captured elves, questioning if she will even help. He crosses his arms, agreeing to accept her proposition as a formal request. He explains that as he is currently an adventurer, he cannot act without proper cause. However, he reveals his F-rank adventurer card only to declare that he and Fina are no longer mere F-rank adventurers, implying their purpose has grown beyond simple quests. Sylph concedes the point, stating that for an assault on the Cuval Order's headquarters, an E-rank quest is more than sufficient justification. She promises a substantial reward, and Ryan agrees. Their target is revealed to be a massive, ancient pyramid shrouded by dense forest. To aid his mission, she offers him her gnarled staff. She then leans in close, mischievously suggesting a kiss as well, which causes Ryan to recoil in irritation as she playfully asks if he wants to die. As he accepts the staff, a soft light envelopes his hand. He stares in shock, realizing this is no ordinary object. She smiles knowingly, explaining that he has just received what could be called the blessing of the World Tree. Her gift, however, is not yet complete. She announces there is one more thing she must give him. Instantly, a clear image of the enemy headquarters floods his mind. He understands its precise location has been imprinted directly into his consciousness, recognizing it as a complex application of teleportation magic. He turns back to her as she makes her formal plea: rescue the captured children. If he succeeds, she promises an even greater reward. With a new sense of purpose, Ryan thanks her, accepting the mission. Having concluded his business with the elven elder, Ryan stands alone in the forest clearing. With his arms crossed, he agrees to the terms, noting to himself that with his presence concealed, he should not have to worry. As he turns, two voices call out his name. It is Fina and Arya, rushing to catch up with him. He stops and asks what they want. Arya, slightly out of breath, chides him for disappearing so suddenly. Ryan explains with a wry smile that he was merely concealing his magical power, playfully calling her an old hag. He then muses that he has only just realized how much about the world he still doesn't know. Arya is taken aback by his comment, while Fina watches them quietly. Changing the subject, Fina asks him a direct question. If she were to accept the request to help the captured elves, what would he do? She is asking to form a party with him for the mission. Her face flushes with determination, her eyes sparkling as she clenches her fists and declares without hesitation, "Of course, I'm coming with you." Arya looks between them, asking if they are both truly serious. Ryan turns back with a confident grin, confirming that they are and announcing their next move, to meet with Surtur and Levitine at once. He looks at Arya and promises to bring all of her companions back safely. Overcome with emotion, Arya tearfully thanks them both, saying that everyone is waiting for their return. Just then, a massive, leathery wing sweeps into view. Now airborne, the group soars through the sky on the back of the great dragon Levitine. Fina exclaims in amazement at the experience. The dragon huffs, stating that this is only natural, as his wife, Fina, has become one with him. As they fly, Fina marvels at the rapidly changing scenery below. Surtur, however, is stunned, finally realizing that Levitine is a dragon. Levitine's massive eye glares as he retorts that he will not be lumped together with a mere dragon by an elven warrior. The ancient dragon, Levitine, roars with impatience, declaring his identity and demanding to take flight. As he thrashes his head, Fina, holding on tightly, asks if he is in pain and tells him not to stray far from her, which seems to cause the beast to flinch. Seeing the commotion, Ryan warns Fina that she will be blown away by the wind if they fly outside the barrier. She quickly agrees. Now calmer, Levitine turns his attention to his master, asking for their heading. He gives the dragon their direction, then crosses his arms in thought. He finds it hard to believe the Cuval Order would have a base in such a remote location. This, combined with the recent matter involving Isaac, suggests to him that the darkness within the organization runs far deeper than he had anticipated. His grim contemplation is reflected in his expression, drawing a concerned and slightly blushing glance from Fina beside him. She softly calls his name, asking what is wrong. Ryan dismisses her concern, but Levitine growls beneath them, demanding to know why his master is emitting such a dense, killing intent while on his back. Ryan sharply tells the dragon to be quiet. Fina, startled by the exchange, immediately admonishes Ryan, telling him not to bully Levitine. Taken aback, Ryan can only agree that she is right. Fina blushes, saying she can't be blamed for being deceived. Arya calmly interjects that it can't be helped, explaining they weren't bullying the dragon, but merely signaling to lower their altitude as they approach the destination. His patience worn thin, Ryan stomps his foot hard on the dragon's back, ordering him to be silent and descend. Levitine yelps in pain. The direct command works. The dragon cries out that he understands and will stop squirming, banking over a vast, dense forest. He circles above a clearing, revealing several stone structures nestled among the trees. They have arrived. As the group observes the enemy base, Ryan suggests that destroying it with magic would be the quickest solution. Fina immediately objects, reminding him that their brethren are inside. Surtur concurs, stating that such an action is not an option, as it would prevent them from achieving their goal. He gazes at the compound, noting the presence of what Fina identifies as Imperial soldiers. A wyvern circles overhead. Ryan surmises that the soldiers are likely ignorant pawns, merely following orders from a lord dispatched by the Cuval Order. Surtur observes that the base itself appears to be built within ancient ruins. Suddenly, the wyvern lets out a deafening roar and unleashes a torrent of destructive energy, a beam of pure annihilation, down upon the base. The blast slams into the ruins, shattering stone and erupting in a violent explosion. A cold, almost cruel, smile spreads across Ryan's face as he watches the chaos. Good, he thinks to himself. Let them be afraid. His expression shifts to one of pure rage. He declares that he will not let these vile insects crawl on his land, vowing to exterminate every last one of them as dark energy begins to swirl around the group, initiating a teleportation. The assault on Cuval's forces rages on. The great dragon Levitine crashes down into the courtyard, crushing armored soldiers beneath its immense weight. Amidst the chaos, Ryan's expression sharpens as he takes in the scene. He watches as the cult's main unit emerges from a darkened passage, a squad of hooded figures stepping over the body of a fallen guard. As Levitine swats another assassin from the battlements, Ryan decides that this scattered assault is insufficient. He invokes a new power, summoning a colossal, shimmering sword, the Gigant Blade, which materializes in the air above the dragon. Fina gasps at the sheer size of the weapon, but Ryan reassures her, confident in his control. The blade descends, carving a deep trench through the stone courtyard and striking down an enemy. He then shouts an order for his allies to ensure no one escapes. In response to his command, a massive stone wall erupts from the ground, blocking the assassin's path. They cry out in terror and confusion. One screaming for help as their escape is cut off. With the immediate threat contained, he turns to Fina and Arya, explaining that this is a grudge match. He resents having his life so deeply entangled with Cuval's affairs. Fina looks back at him, her expression a mixture of concern and admiration. Nearby, Levitine asks if it should incinerate anyone who attempts to scale the new wall. Ryan confirms the order without hesitation. The dragon complies, unleashing a torrent of flame that creates an impassable barrier of fire. His attention then shifts to the next objective. He instructs Surtur to find the captive elves and lead them outside as soon as possible. The elf leader acknowledges the command with a curt nod. He turns back to Fina, his voice softening as he asks if she is all right. Flustered, she looks up at him and quietly affirms that she is. She then declares with renewed conviction that the apostles of the evil god must be destroyed. Seeing her resolve, Ryan agrees. With Surtur at their side, the group prepares to advance. He advances down the corridor with Fina and Surtur, only for another of Cuval's assassins to leap from the shadows. Before the attacker can strike, an arrow from Surtur's bow pierces its chest, stopping it cold. As the assassin falls, he turns to Fina, telling her that she doesn't have to come with him if it's too difficult. Fina gasps, taken aback by his sudden concern. Her initial shock gives way to resolve. She shakes her head, insisting that she will see this through to the very end. He accepts her decision without a word, turning his attention back to the path ahead. A moment later, he stops and faces her again, demanding that Fina answer him honestly. Before she can respond, he suddenly shouts and yanks her into his arms, pulling her away from an unseen danger. The reason for his abrupt action becomes clear as a volley of projectiles slices through the air where she had been standing just a second before, narrowly missing them both. With the immediate threat gone, he asks if she is injured. She stammers that she is all right. From the shadows, a new voice emerges, belonging to a stout, elderly man who remarks that he hadn't expected the intruders to be so young. The elderly man confronts them directly, asking if Ryan is the leader of this fortress and what their purpose is. Ryan retorts that his objective should be obvious: to annihilate every last one of Kuvil's followers. Surtur steps forward to clarify their mission, explaining that their primary objective is to rescue their captured brethren. Ryan coolly dismisses this, stating that such a goal is merely secondary. The old man listens, a thoughtful grunt his only reply. The old man's gaze shifts to Fina. He observes that she seems to be a believer of the light cult, unlike Ryan, and finds the cooperation between humans and elves strange. Ryan cuts him off, declaring that it is none of his concern. His dismissive words provoke a reaction, and the old man's hand clenches. Ryan smirks, declaring that it doesn't matter since the old man will be disappearing from this world shortly. A sphere of energy begins to coalesce in his outstretched palm as he prepares to attack. He calmly faced the elderly guardian, who sneered while conjuring a swirling sphere of dark energy. The old man questioned how long Ryan's composure would last, but Ryan simply noted to himself that this opponent was on a completely different level than the others. In response to the blatant threat, he merely smirked, dismissing the display as naive. With a sharp snap of his fingers, he unleashed his own countermagic. His spell struck the guardian with blinding speed, catching the old man completely by surprise. Ryan explained that his reaction was faster, allowing him to simultaneously deploy a barrier and launch a counterattack. He then taunted his foe, suggesting the so-called monster should see for himself what Ryan was capable of. Enraged, the guardian bellowed that the young upstart was getting carried away. He swung his massive staff, vowing to demonstrate the true power of the god of destruction, but Ryan deftly evaded the crushing blow. From a safe distance, his companions watched the aftermath. The guardian stood frozen, encased in jagged crystal. Surtur wondered aloud if the fight was over, while Fina cried out Ryan's name in concern. He, however, remained perfectly composed, remarking that the guardian's apparent defeat was a common trope. The old man, still conscious inside his prison, was stunned by Ryan's power. Ryan stated that such a weak attack could never breach his barrier, and, with a final gesture, commanded the so-called strongest hero of this world to be blown away. A second, unseen force slammed into the guardian, forcing him to spit blood. He gasped in disbelief, unable to comprehend how his ultimate grimoire could be so utterly surpassed. The mention of an ultimate grimoire sparked a realization. He reasoned that if such a powerful artifact existed under the Great Bishop, then it was possible an even higher authority, a law king, also existed within the hierarchy. With the guardian now whimpering on the floor, he issued his demands, ordering the old man to reveal everything about the religious order. He then turned to Surtur, instructing him to proceed deeper into the fortress to find the captive elves, while cautioning both him and Fina to be careful. As Surtur departed, Fina voiced her concern, asking if they should really let the old man go. He calmly reassured her that there was no need to rush. Panicked people cannot escape, he explained, and more importantly, he had no intention of letting a single person connected to Kuvel slip through his fingers. He was interrupted by Fina, who timidly approached him. Clasping her hands, she asked if he intended to kill even the children who were born and raised within the church. In response, he turned the question back on her, asking if she herself had been born and raised in the St. Estia Church. The query caught her by surprise. He continued, explaining that the people in this place were trying to plunge the world into chaos. Because of this, he reasoned, a child born under the church's influence could never live a normal life. He clarified that while he didn't see himself as a messenger of justice, he was determined to protect those who stood by his side. Fina listened, a faint blush rising to her cheeks. His voice hardened with resolve as he declared that this conviction was the very thing he needed to remain human and not become a monster. It was for this reason, he concluded, that he would annihilate the entire Kuvel church. The declaration left Fina looking at him with admiration, murmuring his name. He reflected internally that he had chosen to accept the misfortune of his birth and the curse upon him, and to keep moving forward. They continued down the stone corridor together. As they proceeded, they reached a large, ornate set of doors. Ryan raised a hand, unleashing a burst of magic that forced them open, revealing the elderly guardian seated defiantly upon a throne within. The guardian scoffed, remarking that Ryan's attitude suggested he'd expected him to have fled. He slammed his staff down, acknowledging that the boy was indeed as strong as a monster, but that he was still only human. He proclaimed that those chosen by God have no need for reason. With a manic laugh, he commanded his brethren to kill Ryan and Fina to repent for their sins. In response, shadowy, featureless humanoids began to rise from the floor. Ryan watched them, unimpressed, calling the display pathetic. At his command, the shadowy figures lunged. Ryan recognized their magic as a forbidden, soul-binding curse. Before he could react, one of the creatures seized Fina, its hand clamping over her mouth as it declared that the souls of the dead should be devoured by the living. Fina let out a muffled scream of terror. As the shadowy tendrils ensnared her, Ryan calmly observed the situation, remarking that a mere increase in numbers changed nothing. The Guardian, however, bellowed back that the number was precisely the point. With a furious roar, he commanded his creation to carve sorrow and terror into Ryan's body as the monster lunged forward. He then turned his attention to the captive Fina, laughing as he declared that she would become a part of Cuvil's power. The horrifying implication struck Ryan, who looked on in disbelief. The Guardian explained that this power, which should not exist in the world, was what he sought. He reveled in the moment, his eyes wide with manic glee at the sheer extent of the forbidden power he now wielded. Ryan, meanwhile, could only stammer, understanding too late the true danger they were in. Her own terror mounted as she felt the profane energy coursing around her. Such a power, she realized with despair, was utterly unforgivable. Ryan cried out Fina's name, his hand outstretched in a desperate attempt to reach her. But the Guardian, now wreathed in dark energy, roared for him to be silent. He roared again, a guttural cry of denial, as the soul-binding monster completed its transformation. It now stood as a fully armored, dark knight, its silhouette blocking Ryan's path to Fina, the nature of its bound soul a terrifying mystery. Suddenly, the chamber erupts. Vicious black tentacles, writhing with malevolent energy, burst from the walls, lashing out at Ryan and Fina. As Fina cries out in terror, Ryan notices with alarm that her condition is rapidly deteriorating. He holds her close, feeling the immense divine power coursing through her. He realizes it's too much for her to bear, that simply suppressing it is taking all of her strength. Before he can react further, a tentacle slams into the ground beside him, the impact sending him flying. As he is thrown across the room, the shadowy appendages converge on them. Ryan twists his body to shield Fina from the brunt of the assault, gritting his teeth in frustration as they are swarmed. He watches as a severed tentacle immediately reforms, realizing with dread that they regenerate. At this rate, he knows there's no end to the fight, and Fina's spirit won't be able to hold out much longer. Deciding there is no other choice, Ryan slams his foot down onto the stone floor. The ground cracks and shatters beneath the force of the blow, creating an escape route into the darkness below. As they plunge through the opening, the elderly man controlling the assault bellows after them, warning that the price for forcing him to retreat will be high. The tentacles immediately dive into the hole in pursuit. He glares back up at the relentless pursuers, ordering the persistent creature to stay put and be crushed. With a sharp cry, he unleashes a powerful spell, Gravity. The crushing force of the spell obliterates a small, imp-like creature caught within the tentacles. Ryan lands safely on a lower level and is immediately met by Levitine, who asks what happened. He looks down at Fina, explaining that she has only fainted. His attention is suddenly pulled away. He senses a familiar magic, a power he remembers from long ago. Peering into the abyss, he sees a colossal, horned, demonic figure taking shape and recognizes it without a doubt. The phantom of the god of destruction, Cuvel. He turns to the ancient dragon, acknowledging that he was unable to completely avoid the destruction. Then his form shifts, his pointed ears and royal uniform materializing as he reveals his true self. He declares that he will no longer face this threat as Ryan, but as Shine Granvania. He turns to his demonic companion, ordering her to stay back and protect Fina. With a firm step, he prepares to face the phantom, but is caught completely off guard as Levitine lunges not at the enemy, but directly at him. Her powerful blow connects, sending him stumbling backward. With a guttural cry, she then propels herself away, crashing through the nearby foliage. The momentum carries her into a stone wall, which cracks and crumbles under the violent impact. Lying amidst the debris, she looks up, a dazed and confused sound escaping her lips. Watching her rise, Shine's expression hardens with a chilling realization. He recognizes this as the lingering influence of Cuvel, a remnant of his power that makes his skin crawl. He raises his gloved hand, a small orb of light beginning to coalesce in his palm as he invokes the name of his spell, Meteor. Before the spell can fully form, Levitine recovers and charges toward him with blinding speed, her claws poised to strike. Reacting instantly, he thrusts his palm forward, unleashing the sphere of concentrated energy. The blast of force slams into Levitine, halting her assault in midair. The magical shockwave hurls her backward into the stone ruins, triggering a massive explosion that shatters the ancient masonry. Elsewhere, deep within the same ruins, an elven archer braces himself as a torch flickers violently on the wall. He feels the entire structure shaking and senses an immense surge of magic, wondering what could possibly be the cause. He peers down a dark, ominous passage, sensing that haste is necessary, though it would be better to proceed with caution. Below, Two armored elven guards stand sentinel before a large, sealed door. Recognizing the barrier, he draws his bow. There is no doubt in his mind. The door is imbued with a magic that blocks spirits, trapping his kin. With a determined expression, he knocks an arrow, vowing to aid his trapped brethren. "Wait for me, my comrades," he resolves. "I'm coming to help." His arrow flies true, striking the barrier and erupting in a series of powerful explosions that rock the ancient walls. From the smoke and debris, a dark-skinned, horned figure leaps aside, narrowly avoiding the blast. The elven guide watches, noting the creature's impressive speed. The brilliant flash of the explosion catches Shine's attention, his head snapping towards the source of the disturbance with a look of surprise. He finds himself facing the horned creature, which now wields a massive wooden beam like a club. Shine smirks, unimpressed by what he perceives as a mindless beast's crude tactics. "This is rather petty," he remarks as the creature swings its makeshift weapon. The creature roars and brings the beam down again, but Shine effortlessly blocks the blow with a single hand, his expression hardening with annoyance. "How irritating," he mutters. With a flick of his wrist, he unleashes a powerful wave of energy. The horned creature is thrown backward, its body contorting as it flies through the air. Shine watches, stunned, thinking it looks like something from a low-budget horror film. The creature crashes to the ground, landing in a heap amidst the rubble, and lies still. He watched as the horned creature's body twitched and then began to dissolve into black particles, sloughing off its frame. "How unpleasant," he muttered, observing the strange spectacle. But the creature was not finished. It rose again, seemingly unharmed, prompting Shine to compare it to an immortal demon. He considered simply blasting it away with magic, but quickly dismissed the idea. It would be a disaster if the elves were caught in the crossfire. Its attention now fixed solely on him. The creature tensed. Shine raised a hand defensively, sensing the next attack was imminent. A second wave? He wondered. The creature lunged forward with blinding speed, but not at him. Instead, it slammed into a nearby ruin, shattering the ancient stone with a powerful strike. The unexpected move caught Shine by surprise. The force of the impact sent him stumbling back. He winced, clutching his side as he cursed the creature's brute force. Looking down, he noticed a dark shard embedded in his uniform. "What is this?" He plucked the fragment of the creature's flesh from his coat. He realized it was using magic as a medium to exist. As the piece dissolved into wisps of dark energy in his hand, he understood that if this continued, the ruins wouldn't hold. He had no other choice. With a ferocious expression, he roared a challenge at the creature, declaring that it should not assume he was the only one capable of wielding magic. He lunged, channeling power into his fist and striking the creature squarely in the jaw with a resounding crash. The creature recoiled, its form cracking under the force of the blow. It seemed to understand now. It possessed the characteristics of spirit, and it could not afford to waste any more time. Standing resolute, Shine addressed his opponent directly. He declared that the time for games was over, and in their next and final clash, he would demonstrate the absolute, undeniable gap in their strength. The demonic creature lunges, its clawed hand outstretched. Prince Shine braces himself, realizing that his magical defenses only grant him a fleeting advantage. With grim determination, he accepts that the final battle has truly begun. Its hand strikes his chest in a burst of dark energy. Shine cries out, knowing he has no choice but to evade the full force of the blow. He leaps backward, clutching the point of impact. He understands that while his magic can absorb the initial force, it cannot mitigate the searing damage of the flames. Gathering power in his hand, he prepares to retaliate. With a powerful roar, he thrusts his palm forward. As the creature stumbles back from the concussive force, Shine calmly informs it that there's nowhere left to run. It will now burn to ashes. He unleashes a massive flare, engulfing the demonic being in a violent, all-consuming explosion. As the dust settles, he lands with a confident smile. He muses that for all of Cuvil's posturing, his pawn was rather unimpressive. His confidence shatters as the ground begins to tremble. The creature reforms, its body swelling and contorting. Shine stares in disbelief, remarking on its cockroach-like vitality and realizing with dread that this feels like a true final boss battle. Now immense, the creature roars and slams a massive fist into the earth, causing a violent shockwave. He watches the transformation complete, identifying the creature's new state, gigantification. With renewed resolve, he tells his foe to remember this moment well. Leaping into the air, he declares this transformation to be a losing flag for the creature. As he closes in, a small, intensely bright orb of energy materializes in his hand. He faces the roaring beast with a confident smirk, declaring its efforts useless. It is pathetic, he muses, for the creature to possess Cuvil's power and yet be so inept. He then taunts it further, offering to devour it if that is what it so desperately desires. The creature lets out a guttural roar in response to the challenge. In an instant, the creature's body violently erupts from within. The force of the detonation sends Shine flying backward through the air. He lands firmly, bringing his boot down to crush what remains of the creature's head. As it groans its last, he asserts that size is irrelevant. The absolute difference in their power is insurmountable. His gaze then falls upon his own hand as it begins to dissipate into motes of light. With a stern expression, he issues a final command. Farewell. Never appear before me again, Tiamat Ifrit. As he speaks, the last remnants of the demonic creature dissolve completely, vanishing into particles of light that scatter into the air. He stands alone in the now quiet clearing, the dust of the battle settling around him. His foot scuffs the ground as he murmurs that it's finally over. A somber thought crosses his mind. Under different circumstances, he could have been the one defeated. He reflects on the strange twist of fate that led to this outcome. A mere salaryman reincarnated into the body of a noble emperor. Just then, distant voices cut through his thoughts as Fina and Arya call out to him. As Fina rushes toward him, the significance of his existence becomes clear. His reincarnation was not random. It prevented the god of destruction, Kuval, from taking his place. This single event saved Fina from a grim fate, as she would have been forced to sacrifice her own life to stop the malevolent god, thereby altering her future entirely. She becomes flustered, pleading with Ryan not to forget her. He looks at her with a steady gaze, explaining that he has decided to live for himself. Changing the subject, he asks if she is all right, and she quietly affirms that she is. As they continue on their way, a voice suddenly calls out his name. He turns to see Surtur and the other elves emerging from the trees. While their leader expresses relief at finding his kin, the others glare at Ryan, demanding to know why a human caused them so much trouble. He calmly tells the agitated elves to settle down. His attention, however, is quickly drawn by Surtur, who points out that Arya is weakened, her magical energy seemingly drained away. Fina looks on with concern, asking if there is anything she can do to help the unconscious girl. Another elf explains that Arya is only sleeping for now, but she must persevere, as her life is not yet out of danger. As Fina murmurs about how weak Arya has become, Ryan steps forward, his expression serious. He reaches out, placing his hand just above the sleeping elf's forehead. His action startles the other elves. One demands to know what he thinks he's doing, while another shushes him, insisting that Arya needs to rest quietly. He continues to gaze down at her as she stirs fitfully. In her sleep, she whispers her deepest desire, to live, not to die. A gentle light begins to glow from his outstretched hand. He looks at the worried elves and speaks with calm certainty, telling them not to worry. He promises he will not let her die. Looking up, the elves are struck with awe. In the distance, their village comes into view, with the great dragon Levitine circling protectively overhead. A wave of relief washes over them as one whispers, We've really come home." Their arrival was met with joyous cries as the elves welcomed Arya back into their fold. As the celebration began, an elderly elf woman approached Ryan, her expression unreadable. She curtly stated that if he had no business with him, he should not have come near. Ryan, unfazed, simply asked what she wanted. She softened slightly, thanking him for saving their children. Ryan turned away, dismissing her gratitude by stating he had no need for it. The elder remarked on his impudence. Nearby, the young elves marveled at Arya's recovery, attributing it to the legendary blessing of the World Tree, a secret art capable of reviving the near-dead. They were astonished that someone would use such a precious gift for another. Ryan, overhearing them, thought to himself that he had merely used what was necessary at the time. He continued his internal monologue, reasoning that if a god were to kill him, such a blessing would be useless to him anyway. At that moment, the elder declared it was a service from her and suddenly thrust her hand against his chest. A brilliant light enveloped him as a spectral image of the elder appeared, bestowing upon him the very blessing of the World Tree he had just dismissed. Ryan looked on in shock, realizing she had done something completely unnecessary, especially since he was planning to leave. As he prepared to depart, Arya approached him, her expression earnest. She acknowledged that, as a human, he couldn't stay in the elven village forever, but she assured him that everyone would have accepted him. With tears in her eyes, she made him promise to come back and visit whenever he remembered them. He and Levitine then walked away, leaving the village behind. Arya waved enthusiastically, shouting that it was a promise. Levitine questioned his decision to leave, noting that the village master still required his power. Ryan simply stated that he felt it was best to make his intentions clear to his opponent. Elsewhere, Prince Cheyenne reviewed an intelligence report. It detailed the ongoing search for remnants of the Kuval cult and for the elves, noting that the Empire now officially considered the elves to be good neighbors. Back with Ryan's group, now rejoined by Fina, she observed that he seemed to be enjoying himself. With a confident smile, Ryan agreed, stating that the rest was now up to the elves. He elaborated on his feeling, explaining that there is enjoyment in forging one's own path into an unseen future. It is precisely because the path ahead is unknown, he mused, that one is able to move forward. He reflects on his past as Prince Cheyenne, acknowledging the tragedies he must carry, yet steeling his resolve to continue fighting in order to enjoy the future. Turning to Fina with a confident smile, he extends a hand. He tells her that if she has any doubts, she should come with him, promising to show her the most wonderful future imaginable. Her face lights up, a blush spreading across her cheeks as she accepts his offer without hesitation. She declares that she, too, will enjoy this world. With their path decided, Ryan walks forward alongside Arya and Levitine, leaving the village behind as they venture toward the distant mountains and the future he promised.